ready. Gee, Ben, what are we doing tonight?
Something. I don't know. We're just talking about something. I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
Are we going to take over? Are we going to take over the world?
No, it's just college football.
Sure, Pinky.
Which is funny,
Nice.
This
take it over, just like the Vols took over Ohio Stadium allegedly, huh?
The college football world has changed. Just think of what it was like 10 years ago, Jackson. Such a different world. Right? Such a different world.
No, you don't.
Get out of here, Ohio State. You can't handle the heat. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to College Football After Dark, right here at the Voice of College Football. It was a fun, interesting weekend, to say the least, and we're going to get into that. But before we get into that, how is everyone doing tonight?
Oh, we are doing fantastic, Ben. How are you doing tonight? How's everybody doing tonight?
Fan-friggin-tastic.
I was like talking to the panel.
Better than I have on one of these programs in a while.
Well, let's go around the room quick as we usually do and introduce yourselves as usual and where people can stalk you if they so choose to online, please. Jackson.
Well, of course, they can stalk me online on Jackson Johnson 979 on YouTube and on Jackson VOCFB on X and on Instagram at Jackson Johnson 543908. And they can also stalk me online on Alabama with the Voice of College Football Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central Time, and on the Alabama Call-In Show Thursday nights, where we take your calls at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central Time, where we have some wild discussions about the Alabama Crimson Tide. Plus, there's much more. Tomorrow, we will be having John and TJ from Michigan at the Voice College Football for the ReliaQuest Bowl preview. And, of course, I'll be joining John and TJ a few hours after that to discuss the preview of the ReliaQuest Bowl from an Alabama perspective. And, of course, there's the release of tomorrow's Jacksonian episode, where I have with me is the beat writer of South Carolina from Rivals at Gamecock Scoop, Alan Cole, as we discuss quite a lot about the South Carolina Gamecocks football program, the preview against Illinois, and much more. We even ask each other a little bit about what we want for Christmas. Let me tell you something, folks. It's a wild ride. Michigan man, what have you got going on in your adventures?
Got a lot going on. This week I will be a diehard Oregon fan, of course. Go Oregon. Hopefully you take out these suck guys. Hopefully they don't just get lucky or whatever the case is going on. And we could hear the end of Jack Sawyer acting like a fake tough guy along with the rest of the team. So that's what I got going on.
He was taking it pretty good last night. He was rather convincing as a tough guy for about 3 hours in Columbus.
Unless you're wearing a winged helmet or an Oregon Duck helmet, then I don't know what happens.
Spaz, what's going on
those nights?
Spaz, what's going on in your your adventures?
My jar is not white, so it's green and yellow, so and gold, and you see, it's the number one team in the nation still. Got them suck guys coming down to Pasadena here in a few days. We'll see what happens. Round 2 could always be interesting. Other than that, you can find me on right there at Spaz_Spaz Drag. Yeah, whatever that X thing is, that's pretty much it. I have the others, but I pretty much stock the X account. That's where I live and die. And with that goober up top, Ben, I hang out with him a few days a week, sometimes too many.
Oh man, it's like y'all are having some wild stuff on last night's edition of the Exploring with Ben and Sam show last night. Like that was pretty wild.
That's a different show. That's a different show. Not appropriate for this channel.
I feel like I've rotted my brain a little too many times.
That can happen. That will happen.
Yeah.
A sufficient amount of brain rot is needed to even venture into those waters. The Exploring with Ben and Sam show.
Yeah, there we go. Well, as we explore on over to Sean, what have you got going on your adventures this week?
Well, just continuing to revel in the exuberance induced by one of the greatest performances in Ohio State history last night. So, still not ready to look ahead, honestly.
All right.
Just taking this in.
Let's calm down.
Just taking that wonderful work of art in from last night. And I will be heading in the morning.
They play a top 14. What he talking?
I will be heading over to Wisconsin to visit my brother for the weekend or for the Christmas holiday tomorrow morning. So, yeah, just looking forward to a lot of quality time with the family, and then looking forward to the bowl games coming up later this week. It's a good time of year.
Yep. Well, Ben, what have you got going on in your adventures on Exploring with Ben and Sam? I hope they're pretty fun.
Not too much right now. I might do some filming on Christmas Day just for the hell of it, because nothing much else going on. But yeah, you can just follow me over there on YouTube here, and then with every Sunday here, and then with the Oregon channel with Spaz down there. This Friday we'll have Garrison on from the Ohio State channel to talk the game, and hopefully next Monday. If Spaz pays attention to the private channel, he did. Hopefully next Monday we'll do Locked On Buckeyes also as another preview show next Monday.
Man, y'all are lining up. Y'all are prepared, man. You're gonna have old Garrison from the Scarlet Blue show and the Ohio State Primetime show on Ohio State at the Voice College Football Mondays every week, and Jay Stevens from Locked On Buckeyes. That's a wild lineup. I love it.
Got to do it. The big
I know how you feel, which for Oklahoma week, I lined up big time. I was like, screw it, I'm getting 4 people.
Yeah. I mean, that's easy. I had to wait last night, obviously, to see the outcome of the game really before I could actually reach out to people. So got it lined up though. But Jackson, we got a quick little bit of business to get to, don't we?
Yes, we do. And it's about how you can be on CFB After Dark Sunday nights at the Voice College Football. And for $9.99, you can be on CFB After Dark by becoming a Heisman member of the Voice of College Football. And I can tell you right now, it's always a wild ride Sunday night by hanging out with Ben and friends as they bring some magic. And let me tell you, I mean, we do act pretty wild. I mean, we're a little too wild sometimes, but I mean, that's what After Dark is for. It's like the HBO version of College Football Final, like from the days of Lou Holtz and Mark May. But it gets pretty wild, but it's pretty funny.
Sometimes Ben tries to make it the Cinemax version, but we're not ready to go that far.
Yeah, I don't want angry text from Mark.
Well, it's a wild ride Sunday nights, and you too can be a part of that wild ride by coming on in and becoming a panel member, by becoming a Heisman member of the Voice of College Football. And of course, for $19.99 a month, you can become a Hall of Fame member by getting some discount merch. I can tell you right now, it's always awesome getting some merch. For $4.99 a month, you can become an All-American member. And in return, you get priority reply to comments, and you get access to VIP hangout with the man himself, Mark Rogers. For $2.99 a month, you can become an all-conference member by having a loyalty badge next to your name, custom emoji to use in the chat and in the comments, member shout-outs, and member-only polls. And finally, for $99.99 a month, you can become a Voice of College Football Bets member. And in return, you will get VIP access to all of the expert picks from Mark Rogers himself, Steve Merrill, Matt Zimmett from Trojans Wire and the Big Ten Live Show, and Steve Dace from the Michigan Podcast and the Steve Dace Show on Blaze TV. And I can tell you right now, it's usually a wild ride, and it's like making an investment for the future, especially if you are a betting man or a betting woman. If you are betting in the world of college football, these are the people that take advice from, including Steve Merrill, where he has the under-the-radar pick of the week. And believe me, you're going to want to take Steve Merrill's under-the-radar picks. Gentlemen, have you been good boys this year? Let me ask you, have you been good this year?
No.
Good at what?
Have been a good boy. Well, I don't think it really makes a difference because you've been a good boy. You get this. The Disputed National Champions, a historical 1990s reset written by Mark Rogers himself, where you will learn about what happened during the 1990s, how the decade changed the sport, why the championship results should be questioned, how to quickly think through the scenarios, and to appreciate the accomplishments of teams that were not recognized as champions. This book provides an in-depth analysis of the changes, controversies, and outcomes that defined the decade of college football. It challenges readers to explore and critically evaluate the decisions that shaped the national championship landscape, unlock the mysteries of college football's most debated decade. Grab your copy now. And of course, if you love top-notch discussion, debate, and analysis, and all of college football, go to the Voice of College Football X account where you can have top-notch analysis with no off-season. Well, you got Ben and friends giving out an adventure. Transfer portal update from Mark and Leanne and friends. Kirk Herbstreit, Buckeye Lunatics, apparently. There's a video on that. Tyler Whitfield and Tyler Natino. Tyler and Tyler. Basically, Mike and Mike after it's Mike and Mike on Florida at the Voice College
Did somebody
Football.
slip Jackson some crack or something? Jesus.
And we got to work on streamlining this stuff. I'm like, this is taking a while.
And we'll get to that in just a little bit.
Jackson's getting paid by the word here.
Now we know why Mark won't let anybody else on the show. Because Jackson's doing all the work, and I figured it out.
No, GK. I don't think that's how that works.
Hey, I just want to give a moment of silence to a little side note. Travis Hunter's bank account, because if he marries that woman, that thing's gone. I know it's random, but moment of silence.
Oh man,
I think
he's got Deion's lawyers. I'm sure he'll be fine.
Darrell, I think we throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's 1 year. I think if we see more of the same results 3 years from now, 4 years from now, then it's time to talk.
And we can bring up that too, because that's one of the things. One of the things the conversation has been going on. But
yeah, let's hold on that point for sure.
After we talk, let's go through the game stuff first, then we can go back kind of to that point. Let me star that because it's good. It's a good point. I'm going to start that and we'll bring that back up to real.
He's 100% wrong. I will put a note on that.
That's a long conversation.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys were, while I'm sitting here watching football games yesterday, I had to have Twitter open because of the Twitter wars that were just going on, which is the greatest thing about college sports, when you can have literally announcers tweeting at coaches and just telling them off, just roasting them on Twitter openly. Like, did you see the one where Lane Kiffin was like, really exciting competitive games? at CFB playoff. And
go Tennessee.
Tweeted back, he was try less, win more.
He wouldn't shut up from 12 to about 8 o'clock, and then for some reason he just went silent.
Disappeared. Yeah, amazing.
It was past his bedtime.
even Joe Klatt texted back and was like, "Man, if your team worked as hard as your tweets, you'd be in or something like that." It was like, God damn.
They would never lose. Ole Miss would put Bama's dynasty run to shame.
Oh.
That man's going to have carpal tunnel on his index finger someday for sure.
Or what was the other one? There it is. Yeah. Tom Fernelli. Does Tennessee beat Alabama? No wonder they put SMU in. Love it. What other? Did you guys see any good ones yesterday?
I don't know.
Yeah, I just didn't.
I did.
Clemson, Texas looked good for a little bit, but I think the Texas running game overpowered Clemson's defense.
Well,
yeah, we're talking about tweets here, Jackson.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
yeah, I was like, we're still on tweets, but if no one saw any other tweets, screw it. Whatever. Let's go to the game. Let's go right into the games. Let's go in the recap here. Let's just start at Friday and go through the lineup, so to say. So Friday night, Notre Dame beats Indiana 27-17, and it really wasn't that close.
No.
I have my own opinions on the game for both teams, but what did you guys think of the game?
Marcus Freeman accomplished something for the first time since Lou Holtz was in South Bend, Indiana. Win a big postseason big game. That was huge right there. I mean, I know it was Indiana, but still, though, Marcus Freeman, I believe, could possibly pull something huge in South Bend. Maybe not this year, but next year and beyond. I really like what he's bringing for Notre Dame.
Yeah, so I think, here's what I think. These first rounds, you could call them playoff games, and they are, but they're really higher seeds playing teams that if this was ranked normally, it'd be like top 4 teams, top 5 teams playing borderline top 10 teams with expected outcomes, and that's what we're seeing in these first rounds. I thought Notre Dame was very impressive. I thought that game was utter domination from the opening jump. They controlled both lines of scrimmage, dominated both lines of scrimmage from start to finish. So it just looked like 2 different classes on the field.
Well, I'll say I think Indiana's defense show that they actually belong. I thought they actually were up to the challenge in this game. A big problem with what Indiana is, it's similar to what Tennessee has been this year, the last couple of years, really. When you run this really heavy RPO offense here, and you have like very limited concept design, route tree, and play designs, eventually teams figure you out, and it becomes a lot easier to play against, and it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier for really athletic defenses to play against that. So they in Tennessee both have these offenses that look amazing when you play mediocre or worse competition, and then when you scale up to higher level play, it just doesn't work. And so that has been, and it helped Indiana right where they are this year. And Indiana absolutely deserved to be in. I don't care if I don't like when we get into the judgment of who we think is better. Oh, this team must be better than that, because I want to eliminate as much subjectivity as we can from this system. And Indiana objectively had a really, really good season, a playoff worthy season. But they kind of fooled everyone this year, including the teams they played.
I would pick Indiana.
They hit their ceiling. They hit their, they hit a wall at a point this year, and they just weren't as good at the end of the year as they were at the beginning and the middle. So, but they deserve to be in for sure. And that wasn't an embarrassing loss, really. It was. They got beat. They got controlled in that game, but I mean, I don't think they just got flat out got unzipped in this game. It was okay.
Well, until
I thought they got
unzipped. Until he decided to punt when you're down 2 scores in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that was not a good decision.
Did you guys hear his excuse? Did you guys hear his post game excuse?
Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad.
Yeah.
He's like, well, the offense wasn't giving me nothing, and my defense was the only one that came to play, so I figured I'd give the defense a shot. Fuck.
At least he says it. I mean, shit. I mean, what do you want him to say at that point? What else is he going to say? At least he's like an honest guy.
Yeah,
that's one thing I get from Cincinnati. At least he's an honest guy. What are you going to say? Oh, I punted. It seemed like
a loser mentality.
If you say that's the best decision, it's still a loser mentality to you. It depends on how you take it or discern it. I'm not going to hold that.
Nah, you go out swinging, man. You go out swinging.
You go out swinging.
The point. I'm not saying that. We're talking about what he said in the post game. I'm not talking about the call. We're talking about what he said. Now you guys are reverting back to the call. I'm saying what he said about why he made the call. No, I'm saying at least he said what he said. I mean, I could give a shit, but I agree.
Basically saying our offense is ass. We're not going to be able to pick this up.
Hey, you know what? He knows he has shit he needs to work on and fix to get better next year. He knows what he needs to work on. It's the O-line. He knows that. The defense, I agree, Sean, though. The defense I thought played pretty well, and it was noted. Notre Dame's offense, I'm still not fully sold on.
Yeah.
They got a lead, and then they just kind of either just sat on it or literally couldn't do anything. I'm not 100%.
You think they were kind of playing with their food a little bit?
Maybe.
I just think they thought the only way we can let Indiana back in this game is if we make a big mistake. So that's if we just.
So Mike, the run game is good, and I'm not doubting their defense is fine too. Obviously. This
is another thing we're going to find out about Notre Dame's ground game as well. If you look through, they've really not played many strong defensive fronts at all. They haven't gone up against a lot of guys that are going to be playing a lot of NFL bodies on their schedule. So we'll see this week how that ground game again scales against legit competition because remains to be seen. This offensive line is not what it's been in the past years. I mean, at least as far as pedigree is concerned. So we'll have a good look at it.
Well, Mike Fort's got a great point about the ground game being legit. Because, I mean, especially when we saw Jeremiah Love making that 98-yard run for a touchdown. That was the longest run in school history.
To me, I thought that play exposed everything about why Indiana was not ready for this challenge. I mean, I kept expecting someone to have an angle on him, someone to catch him, and someone to get him, but that play just exposed Indiana's lack of athleticism. That they just don't have the premier athletes defensively.
So basically, in your mind, that game said more about Indiana than it did about Notre Dame, correct?
Probably. Yeah. I don't know, but it's hard to say. It's one game.
Yeah.
Also, Indiana throws an interception early in that game, and Notre Dame gets a 98-yard touchdown run the very next play.
Oh yeah.
If that drive goes a little differently, I mean, you have a different game on your hands. So.
Well, and I was going to say also that Indiana's losing streak in South Bend continues because the last time they beat Notre Dame in South Bend was in 1898. Did not. 1898. As they say, truth is stranger than fiction. But there are some people that are not truly convinced by Notre Dame beating Indiana. So some of these people are not truly convinced by the fact that, well, good job. You won your first big game in the postseason since the 1994 Cotton Bowl from the 1993 season. Not impressive enough. If you beat Georgia in Sugar Bowl, I'll be more convinced. A friend of the Voice of College Football, co-host of the Big Ten Mafia show from Big 12 Mafia. Shout out to Big 12 Mafia, friend of the Voice of College Football. Sergeant Pickles said, we got to see more from Notre Dame. We got to see. I want to see if they could beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. But gentlemen, what do you think? Are you impressed with Notre Dame finally slaying that drought that has just plagued them from after 1993, or do they need to win the Sugar Bowl for you guys to be convinced? And chat, what do you think? You decide.
Well, we need to see how well Stockton plays for Georgia, because if Stockton's just like throwing picks ran left and right, then I wouldn't be impressed. I mean, like bad picks, so to say. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, well, we're going to see. That's going to be obviously a step up in challenge, especially against a Georgia defense. But then again, the SEC defenses were supposed to be some of the best, and we saw how that played out in another game that we'll get to in a little bit. So, is that defense overrated, so to say, for Georgia? In a way, we're going to find out. Notre Dame's in for a challenge, so I guess that would impress me more, though. That would definitely be the more impressive win if they beat Georgia.
Yeah, I don't think beating Indiana at home is how you envision breaking the drought there. It's not a win that carries a lot of weight in the public's eye, I don't think. So,
Spaz, what do you think?
I just think that Notre Dame has a chance against Georgia because they got a backup quarterback. We don't know how good he is. And I wasn't overly impressed with him. I mean,
give me Georgia by a million.
He beat, he held Texas and finished that game, and they still won. But I think that was more so because of Georgia's defense. I think if Notre Dame scores at all and moves the ball, then I think Georgia could be in trouble, because I just don't think this freshman quarterback is going to be what will help them.
Michigan man, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, you always got a chance, but I'm going with the new best coach in college football, Kirby Smart. I'm going with the pedigree. I'm going with that elite defense. I'm going with Georgia. I think they're going to win by a lot.
All right.
Well, there's a little fun fact about Notre Dame, Indiana that night on Friday. It was the first Notre Dame home game that wasn't on NBC since November 17th, 1990, when they played Penn State. I believe they lost 24-17.
That was also the first Friday night game they've ever played in that stadium, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
That's bizarre. Notre Dame, get your shit together. Be like everyone else. We're Notre Dame.
Oh, my mistake. They lost 24-21 Penn State that night. I meant 17-21 up. My bad, everybody.
Well, speaking of if Gunnar Stockton throws a bunch of picks, let's talk about the next game, because boy,
were there any picks thrown in that game?
Oh,
Jennings was very generous with that ball to Penn State. Very, very generous. And they were some really bad ones too. Really bad picks.
My God, that was terrible.
2 pick sixes and an interception. You can't have that.
The game started off like not bad at all, because Penn State offensively looked just awful. SMU's defense actually did okay, and then Jennings was the giver. He gave early Christmas presents to Penn State all throughout the day.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I don't know. I feel like this game could have been a reasonably good one, a pretty competitive game, but Jennings just said wasn't having any of that. Just said nah. I'm gonna spot Penn State just all the points they need to just sit on the ball and walk out of here with a very, very easy victory. And I don't know, that was tough to watch. And I was wondering, Preston Stone, who by the way might have set a record in his commitment after the game, announcing his transfer to Northwestern. I mean, I think within minutes of the conclusion of this game, he was dressed. He was available in this game, and never took the field. I wonder exactly why that didn't happen. I mean, it was clear that Jennings wasn't up for the challenge pretty early in this game, and I don't know. Like you asked a question, Jackson, about the Notre Dame Indiana game. Does it say more about? Does this game say more about Notre Dame or Indiana? I don't know if this game told me much of anything about Penn State. Other than the fact that Abdul Carter, which we already know is just a descendant from another dimension here, the SMU left tackle had a PFF grade of 2.1 in this grade. It's 2.1 out of 100. Basically means he was just slightly better than if you did not put anyone at that position at all. And so, but other than that, like the game was given to Penn State here. This was just, they didn't have those interceptions. They didn't have to do a whole lot for them. They didn't really force them. The offense was completely average throughout the game. SMU could have made a game with this. They really could have. It was just, and if you're going to point to this being sort of an example of like why the playoff system is broken, I think that's flawed. I don't think that's good reasoning because this was a weird, fluky game. It really should not have been anywhere nearly as lopsided as it ended up being. SMU plays, to half the quality they played through the regular season. This game's much more competitive.
I can't agree with that. I thought that was domination. That's just me though. It'd be funny, guys. This would be a hilarious scenario. Let's say Ohio State gets to the national championship game, but they lose to Penn State. Oh my God, that'd be glorious.
Penn State, the weird thing is, I think like for James Franklin to live any of his to live down any of his criticism, he has to make the title game because with this with the bracket he got, getting to the semifinals is just expected here. I mean, that's just
but he most likely would have to beat Georgia.
Yeah, no. I know, but the whole book on him is that he can never beat anybody of significance. They can't win any big games. They can't ever. They never have a chance against anybody that might be slightly better than them or slightly more talented than them.
Sounds like Ron.
That's been the book on him for a very long time, and for him to change that, they have to get to the title game. I mean that. It's kind of crazy expectations, but when you look at the gift of a playoff bracket they got, it's not unfair. I don't think.
Well, yeah. Apparently, it's time to go to the next one.
Oh yeah. That one, Clemson, Texas. That was a pretty good one right there. For a little bit, it was a good one. Looked like we were going to have a
it was 21-3.
21-7.
Oh.
Yeah, Clemson scored first in this game. They got a touchdown.
And then it was 28-7.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
28-10. It was 28-10 at halftime.
Yeah. I was gonna say, did you watch the first half of that game, Spaz?
Yeah, I did.
Oh man. I just want to make sure. I was like, good grief. Like
it was a blowout. I mean, all the games were really blowouts. There wasn't really one good game the whole weekend. It was just boring football, really. If you want to get real. Can anybody name any one of the 4 games that was really even remotely close?
Well, this game was a one-score game in the fourth quarter for about 10 seconds. It never really felt like Clemson was that much in the game.
Exactly.
But I mean, at least they didn't roll over and die. Like, they didn't embarrass themselves in this game.
No.
I thought they were overmatched. I thought going into the game, this was the one that was most reliably going to be a beatdown.
Yeah, and, I knew this game. I had a confident feeling this game was going to be a 2-score or better game, and that's what it ended up being.
Yeah.
I mean,
but Clemson, unlike SMU and Indiana, Clemson came in and I thought played pretty close to form in this game. I thought they played.
Klubnik played his ass off. He did.
Oh yeah,
but they couldn't stop Texas's run game at all.
No, and that's been a problem for them the entire season. So it's not at all a surprise to see how this game went. But Clemson, unlike the other teams that lost this weekend, I thought you can't really be disappointed or with the performance they put on the field. I thought the other 3 teams that lost this weekend, I don't know, like they just weren't themselves in the games they played.
No, it truly showed home field advantage was a big segue this weekend.
Yeah.
All 4 home teams won by pretty convincing margins.
Yeah. I mean, the Notre Dame Indiana game was closer than this one by the final score, but that's very deceptive.
Yeah, 2 scores in the last 2 minutes. I mean, let's get real though.
Yeah,
that almost cost everyone that bet Notre Dame at plus 8.5 or minus 8.5. They were probably hanging on a thread on that last 2-point conversion. Been like the ultimate bad beat.
Oh yeah, that would have been.
Ben, how did you feel about Texas Clemson on TNT yesterday?
It was kind of the same thing of the Notre Dame game. It was like Texas got it big, especially with the last second, the last minute and a half touchdown drive they did before the half. And then they just kind of sat on it. Obviously credit Clemson for their defense in the second half, but they just kind of sat on it and either didn't try or couldn't do anything, one or the other. So I don't know. It was definitely the better of the games, that's for sure. But I don't know.
I was talking with Matt Miller a little bit during the game, and he was saying this was just another example of Texas playing with their food, he said this has been a problem for Texas through the years, just either a reluctance or an inability to really put away games that they're dominant in. Just allow teams to hang around for way too long. And for a while it looked like they were going to run away with this, and Clemson just stayed in there. Just made this game not super boring.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was an interesting game overall, but Yeah, I'm not sure still what to take away from it. It's kind of interesting because obviously Clemson had everything to play for, kind of backdooring their way into the ACC title game, escaping that one, getting a shot, but,
Man, I can tell you right now, it was awesome seeing magic from Jaden Blue and Cortrevion Wisner, making magic on the running game. And I remember like some people were saying that Texas doesn't really trust Quinn Ewers, and I'm hearing that like one or two people are like, oh well, they should bench Quinn Ewers, this, that, and the other. Do you think we could see something similar to what Alabama did with Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa at any point in the playoffs for Texas, or no?
Oh yeah. If you get a similar situation where Ewers is just complete dog shit, like in the first half of a game, or if they play Ohio State or Oregon in the semis and he's just awful, I definitely think you could see them switch to Arch. I don't think that's unrealistic at all. And maybe even against Arizona State, who knows? I mean, if Ewers goes out and throws like 2 picks and then the offense is completely non-functional, I definitely think. I mean, I don't think Arch is that far from getting in the game at all.
It's a possibility. I mean, I wouldn't. If you have to do it, you have to do it. I mean, so the coach is gonna do what they need to do to win. So, regardless.
Michigan, man, what was your thoughts?
I mean, it's pretty much the same thing you guys are saying. I thought, they were clearly the better team. I thought they controlled the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's pretty much what football comes down to, right? If you can control the lines of scrimmage, chances are you're going to win the game, and that's what we saw.
Yeah. Who didn't? Was that? Go ahead, Jackson.
I was just going to say it's been a little bit. You said something about the state of Clemson's program, because especially on the defensive line, this has been one of the better programs on the defensive front for the last decade, and they've clearly fallen off up front defensively. I mean, they don't look anything like what they did in the late teens here with.
Shout out Dabo for actually going into
Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins and Cleveland Farrell.
Well, shout out Dabo for actually going into the transfer portal this season. Good job, Dabo.
I was gonna say about.
I'm not going into a 10-minute rant about Dabo in the transfer portal. We're not doing that. So
nah, we won't. It feels like Dabo has realized that he's kind of like Jack Horner from Boogie Nights, where he's just like he doesn't want to adjust at first. Where he's just like, if it looks like shit, if it smells like shit, then it must be shit. But then he got talked into it about the portal, where he's like, you know what? I always say if you can't beat them, join them.
Yep. Well, speaking of defensive lines like Clemson's, we heard this thing about how big and bad the SEC is and how great Tennessee is, and talk about shit.
Gee,
Tennessee's defensive line,
like
secondary.
Like that was so irritating that the fans, the players are doing like, oh, this is gonna be a takeover in Columbus. Like, oh my god, they were like pigeons taking a shit on the chessboard and strutting around like they won, and the game hadn't even been played yet. The game was not even played yet, and they were just taking massive dumps on the chessboard.
It was.
Oh, we're tough. We're tough. We have our shirts off in the cold. Yeah. You're real tough. Let's see what you can do on the field. Yeah, you got blasted. You got blasted by a Michigan team that doesn't have a good quarterback situation. You got blasted. You weren't even close. Like the Vols had more of a shot getting a drink at the Long Branch with Miss Kitty than they did winning against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Like, my God, like Jeremiah Smith ran all over the Vols. I mean, the Vols looked like a complete disgrace on the road and a complete disaster.
But yeah, they put a whooping on Alabama. I don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, speaking about getting wrecked too, shout out to Nico's helmet, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God!
Damn, I've never seen that.
He targeted himself there.
Jeez.
Jeez. No, that was. Yeah, they were getting awfully chesty all week prior to that game, which I respect. I respect people that run their mouths. I admire it, and from what I've heard, Tennessee fans have mostly just ate it the last 24 hours.
Well,
Which, yeah, and the team was hearing it going back to the tunnel, which I don't know 100% condone, but that's how it gets in here. I mean, like they are paying off the debts that their mouths ran up this week for sure. I mean, holy crap!
Yeah, it was. I mean,
let's be real though. Let's be fair. I mean, they did represent well. I mean, there was a lot of orange in that stadium. Maybe there was obviously some of it was exaggerated. That 60-70% of the pre-sale tickets were going.
40.
No, but of the pre-sale tickets, it probably ended up being around like 20-25% Vols fans in that stadium, which is a hell of a lot.
Yeah, it's still pretty good.
I got a couple friends that were there, and they said it was close to 40%, and they're Ohio State
that's
Ohio State alum. They were impressed.
Yeah, and of course, like they're not incredibly far. Knoxville's like 4 or 5 hours from Columbus. So. But it was, I don't know, the lead up to this was by far, I think, the most entertaining storyline game of the weekend. And, man, the fact that Ohio State just showed up and I've watched every Ohio State game since about 96 here, and I think that might be the best performance by a Buckeye team I've seen in my entire life. Just the most completely dominant.
All right, I gotta step in here now.
Go ahead.
That was Clemson versus Ohio State. Ohio State fans need to calm down. You played a Tennessee team.
Need to calm down. I mean,
hold on. I'm talking about Ohio State fans are saying, "Oh, this is the most." No, you played a Tennessee team. That's a borderline top 10 team that every time they played a solid to good defense, they were exposed this year. Their secondary has been exposed. Beck threw for almost 400 yards on that secondary. You didn't play a top 14. It's not like you dominated a top 14. You dominated a team that, quite frankly, you were supposed to dominate. This is like playing.
No one dominated them this year. No one came close to dominating them this year.
Okay, who did they play this year? They played Georgia.
Georgia. That was a touchdown game against Georgia.
Okay, they played Georgia. Beck threw for almost 400 yards on that defense. Their offense couldn't do anything. Literally couldn't do anything after the first quarter. They also played. I don't even think they played. Oh yeah, I actually have it right here. They played, I think, only 3 teams above 500 all year. I'll repeat that. They played only 3 teams above 500 all year. And I believe they only won one of them.
Yep, Florida, Alabama, and Georgia.
And they only won one of them, and that was Florida.
Mm-hmm.
No,
they played a week.
Well, they beat Alabama.
Alabama, no offense to Jackson, they had the Georgia win. But after that Georgia win, I could argue they became a very mid-tier team. They lost to Vanderbilt.
They didn't. Whooped. They didn't lose to Vanderbilt. Oh, you're talking about Bama.
Yeah,
Bama lost to Vanderbilt. Yeah. Then they lost to a awful Oklahoma team by 3 scores. 3 scores, guys. They probably should have lost to South Carolina.
Yep.
If we're being honest.
Oh,
I mean, that is not a great win. No offense, Jackson. At that point, it's not a great win. So, look, it was a good playoff win, but it wasn't like you was playing in the semis versus a top 4 team and you dominate. No, you dominated a borderline top 10 team, not a borderline top 5 team, not a borderline top 6 team. And quite frankly, if you look at the defensive game plan that Tennessee was running, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Press man 1 high with a terrible secondary versus arguably the best receiving core in the country. What did you guys? Did they? I gotta ask this. Did they go back and watch 2018 Michigan versus Ohio State and thought, I think we should run that. We should run the Don Brown press man defense, and we're the SEC. So maybe we can make it work. I don't know what they were thinking.
And I was going to say also, to your point, Michigan man, both of the Tennessee losses prior to Ohio State were both road games. They couldn't get it done against Arkansas.
Yep. How about this stat, Jackson? Tennessee has now lost 22 straight ranked road games.
Yeah.
22 straight.
Yeah. That's bad.
It's nice to see that Michigan man won't let Sean have a nice moment.
No, man. This is why, Ben.
I realized this is why he came on. Now I was wondering why he was even on this program.
Well, look, I gotta keep Ohio State people in check. Because here's the thing: it's natty a bust. It isn't beat borderline top 10 Tennessee who only played 3,500.
Okay,
now we ain't doing that.
Even if you think they're a borderline top 10 team. No, you've talked for like 10 minutes here. You say they're a borderline top 10 team, beating a borderline top 10 team in the manner in which they did is damn impressive. It just is. I mean,
but it's not the most impressive that you're claiming it to be.
I think this was the best performance. I'm not saying it's the biggest win. I'm saying this is the best performance I've seen from an Ohio State team ever that I have ever watched.
Okay,
last night.
Look, man,
This is a good. No. Hey, please. I mean, I let you talk for so long here about my team.
Continue with the crazy talk.
Okay. No, this is a good Tennessee team. You're outside your mind. You don't know. Oh my God. You don't know the game if you can't admit like this. This is a team, a strong, a tough out Tennessee team that they just took behind the woodshed and made look like Tennessee Tech last night. I mean, honestly. This team has multiple first rounders on defense. They're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the country defensively by every statistic.
You can put it the real Commodore way. He's an SEC homer. I mean, what do you expect him to say? But no, for real.
I don't know what to say. They were complete. They were efficient. They were aggressive. The play calling was on point. The physicality was there last night. Obviously, the skill and the execution. Will Howard last night completed like 83% of his passes for about 11 yards an attempt last night. The defense basically gave up one significant offensive drive to Tennessee. It was a thorough, complete, impressive performance by Ohio State, and there's not much more to say.
So here's the thing, man. 2021, 49-0 at half versus Michigan State, way more impressive. 2020, Clemson, the Ohio State dominating Clemson, way more impressive. I could go down. There's so many more impressive wins in this, and largely because the opponent. 100%. I hate to tell you this. Tennessee is not that great. Again, they played 3 teams over 500. They're 1-2 versus those teams. They're 1-2.
No, they're not. They're not. They're 2-1.
They are Jackson, aren't they 1-2 versus teams over 500?
They lost to Arkansas, who was 6-6.
Yeah, Tennessee lost to Arkansas, and they lost to Georgia on the road.
Georgia.
Okay, so they're 2-2. Oh, they're 2-2. So they're 500 against teams over 500. The point is, they played a weak schedule, and when they actually played competition, especially defensively, they couldn't move the ball, and they didn't look that good. So yeah, it's a good win. It's a good win because it's a playoff win, but it's not the most impressive win on Ohio State. You had that opinion. I just think that's crazy. I can name way more impressive wins than that.
Well, gentlemen, I'm glad we're talking about Tennessee because we're going to point out their 2025 schedule because it's pretty easy, it looks. So they got week 1, the Chick-fil-A kickoff against Syracuse, which Syracuse is harder than they look. I mean, if anybody's watched them all year, I mean, if you look at the Stanford game, you're thinking Syracuse is a softie. Well, somebody forgot to tell them that because afterwards they didn't screw up that much again, especially when they pulled off that upset over the Miami Hurricanes on rivalry week, knocked them out of the ACC title race. And we're going to see what happens in the ball game against in their ball game because we're going to see what happens. Although I got to be real, I'm liking what Syracuse is going to bring against Washington State in the Holiday Bowl on Fox. It'll be interesting to see. And of course, the big one is can they beat Georgia at home? And we're going to see whether they can beat Alabama on the road. Because, gentlemen, do you know the last time Tennessee beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa?
It was probably
it's been a long time, I'm assuming, because of that 22
in the 2000, probably sometime around like 06 or something, just before Saban got there.
That was in Knoxville.
Well, I mean, like, I'm just saying around that time period.
Okay, let me guess. The 90s or the 80s?
The 2000s.
Yeah, Tennessee was still pretty good in the early 2000s, and Alabama was not very good.
All right, I'm just going to guess 2003.
Yes, that is correct, Michigan.
I got there. Oh, that's correct. I just guessed that. I literally just guessed that.
And it was a 51-45 victory in 5 overtimes. It was the first overtime game in the history of the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry.
That's old school overtime too, man.
Yeah, I like old school overtime, but I can tell you right now, like I'm sure there's got to be an off-season show on After Dark dedicated to debating about the overtime rules. But anyway, back to the Tennessee schedule. Now, this is the kryptonite for Tennessee. Can they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa? And can they beat Florida in Gainesville? Can anybody guess when the last time Tennessee beat Florida in Gainesville?
Well, they play every year too, so oh man. Does the year begin with a 1 or a 2?
Go back 1.
1. Wait. They play every year too.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it would have had to have been. They didn't play. Was it 98 the national championship year for them?
Tennessee did beat Florida in Knoxville in 98, of course, but I'm talking about in Gainesville.
In Gainesville, yeah, obviously. Yeah, probably. Is it in the 80s?
God, they didn't play that much in the 80s.
Okay.
It didn't become an annual game until 1990, but basically it wasn't annual until 1992.
Okay, so 91. I don't know.
After that, Michigan man, you guessed it correctly on the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry. When was the last time Tennessee beat Florida in Gainesville?
I don't know, man. Give me. I'm just gonna guess. Is it 2000s?
Yes.
Okay,
wait. I asked if the year started with a 1 or 2.
Oh, God. Michigan, man, what'd you say?
2002?
Go back one.
2001.
No. But they did beat.
2003?
But they did. Yes.
Oh, same year? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tennessee did beat Florida in 01, but that wasn't the last time they beat Florida in Gainesville. But it was a memorable one, of course, because I mean it got moved back to December. Well, because of 9/11. But yeah, 2003 was the last time Tennessee beat Florida in Gainesville and Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Now, does Tennessee have to get that monkey off their back in 2025 to show people they are a serious contender? Which is more serious, that losing streak in Tuscaloosa or the losing streak in Gainesville? What do you think, gentlemen? And chat, tell us what you think.
Well, I mean, the Tennessee considers Alabama much more of a rival than they consider Florida a rival. That's a much bigger rivalry game. So it has to be the Bama, the Tuscaloosa streak. That is brutal. God, going that long without ever having a road victory over either of your rivals.
Yeah. It's been that long, but I think if anybody can get Tennessee to end those losing streaks on the road, it's Josh Heupel. I think he can get it done. Spaz.
I mean, Michigan went 20 years without doing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spaz, which is the most likely for the Tennessee Volunteers in 2025 as of right now in your mind? Is it more likely that they end the losing streak at Tuscaloosa or Gainesville?
Spaz is gone. He's like me. We drifted off during your 20-minute rant about Michigan and Tennessee and Ohio State. Let's touch some super chats here.
Michigan man.
We're going to move the fuck on from this. Like E. Burr said, how about teams that are actually still in this and talk the playoffs, not Tennessee history, or because no one gives a crap. They're a crappy team. They're out of the playoffs. Go home, Tennessee. Go home. Pacific Northwest, you saw this earlier. Apologize, we didn't get to it. Had to get through that rant with them. But yeah, when your GPA is greater than your PFF, you're not doing well.
That was in reference to the SMU left tackle blocking Abdul Carter yesterday.
Yes.
Basically, I mean, he basically being a revolving door as opposed to nothing.
Yeah. And then Nick here also. PSU wins. They are a fake champ. Easiest path. Well, they'll still have to get through some teams. So, I mean, I won't say fake champ, but they definitely don't have the most difficult path. I mean, let's put it that way.
Well, you could say they're a fake Final Four team if they get there. Because
no, you can't say they're fake champs because they're going to have to end up beating probably Georgia and Oregon.
They're going to have to beat somebody really good.
They're going to have to beat two teams really good.
That's what I mean. The initial part of it maybe is fairly easy in the sense of it, but they still have to play those games. But then they're going to have to. It's going to get worse, obviously, as they get closer if they make it that far.
Agreed.
So I wouldn't necessarily call them fake champs.
Yeah,
but we definitely do appreciate the super chats. Again, sorry Pacific Northwest Ute for taking a while there to get to your super chat, but we appreciate it. It helps the channel a lot, so definitely keep them coming if you want. All right, what were we talking about now? Things of substance.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you looking forward to it, Sean? The rematch?
Oh yeah. I'm still soaking in yesterday. I'm too busy still. It's been so long since we've had something really, really positive to celebrate. So Ohio State fan.
Well, what are you celebrating, man?
Celebrating a fucking dominant win. We're not going to spend 20 minutes on this again.
Yeah, I know. Okay. That's why I'm like, it's like the whole thing. If Sean thinks it's one of the greatest wins or best looking wins or whatever, that's his opinion. You have yours. That's all you need to do.
Oh, how do you have fault?
Argument. Jesus. Anyways, I will end this live stream. I swear to God. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a good game. At round 2, the revenge game for Ohio State. Will Ryan Day go 0-3 against Oregon in his coaching career, or not? We'll find out in a classic Pac-12 Big Ten matchup. Just now.
How awesome is that they get to meet in the Rose Bowl? In title game. Or in the playoff here.
Yeah. Well, and that's the funny thing. A lot of people are like, this is the title game right here. I mean, this is it. Whoever. I'm like, all right. No, it's not the title game. Relax, everyone. All the people that are saying that. I'm like, cool.
It is unbelievable that they're meeting in the quarters, though. I mean, like, that's just a flaw in the
that I agree. System. That I agree with. Yeah. That I agree with. That type of game should not be in the second round. That should not have happened.
No.
Hi, Spaz.
I don't know which game do you think is going to get more attention? Ohio State, Oregon, or Penn State, Boise State?
Oh,
well,
that's easy.
Oregon, hands
down. Obviously, the Buckeyes in Oregon.
Yeah.
Obviously, SMU, Penn State. I mean, come
on. Boise, Penn State.
Yeah.
Well, that's how you know how much that game matters.
Hey, don't look past Boise State though. Don't look past.
Yeah,
Boise
that's kind
State.
of dumb to look past Boise, like
especially in the Fiesta Bowl. Come on now, that's just history right there.
Yeah,
that's just begging for them to get another Fiesta Bowl win.
Do you think they'll just call a hook and ladder play just for the hell of it?
Here, I have a feeling, guys,
just as a tribute.
I hate to say, guys, I have a feeling that OSU's going to beat Oregon.
I mean, you don't want to get bushwhacked by Boise State because Oregon bout got bushwhacked in week 2.
Yeah,
the loser of the rematch usually has the advantage.
Not always.
Not always, but it is one of those whatever sayings. They are it's hard to beat a team twice, but we've seen it be done. Georgia over Texas twice this year. So
what if the national title was Oregon Boise State? Think about that.
That would be hysterical.
Well,
the funniest one would be Arizona State versus Boise. Yeah, for the national title. I think the college football world would collapse. Like it would implode upon itself.
My dream scenario would be Penn State versus Ohio State, and Penn State wins. That way we extend Ryan Day.
Penn State loses for a decade straight to Ohio State and then beats them for a national title.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
That would just be too insane.
Yeah.
Could see a Penn State Oregon rematch though.
It's possible. The last thing we don't want to see is I think most people we don't want to see a Texas Georgia rematch for the third time.
No,
I don't think we want to see that. That would be like.
No, Texas keeps thinking that's going to happen.
Hey, we do have to admit,
especially since neither of the games were like. I mean, the SEC championship game was dramatic and entertaining at the end. I don't think it was a great game the entire way through, though. It's kind of a dry game until at the end. It was just really close.
Well, if we didn't see. What if we didn't see an SEC team in either of the semifinals?
Then Darrell's down bad.
Yeah, that would mean the SEC went 0 for the playoffs. 0-3. No. Texas already won one, so I guess
at that point we could tell Sankey to shut the hell up. Not being a big
Lane Kiffin would delete his Twitter.
Hey guys, I will say this: don't you think one of the biggest downsides to this expanded playoff, and I guess it really only applies to college football, is having these potential 3-time rematches? I mean, I honestly don't like it at all. Like the same team, the same matchup 3 times.
This is the problem.
I don't mind it at all. I think it's fantastic.
But this is the problem when you
fantastic.
I mean, when you get the super conferences, this is the problem though too. Is that sometimes like Ohio State had to play Oregon. Now we're in the same side, but what if they weren't? We could have to do it twice, or if they were in the title game. Sometimes you're going to have to play these teams again because you're in the conferences, unless you avoid them. But Texas and Georgia happen to play then for the title and potentially, and. So it's going to happen, I think, a little bit more and more here and there. Not all the time.
Why do you think Ryan Day lost to Michigan for a 4th time in a row?
Random question.
Listen. I mean, I'll still definitely watch if Texas and Georgia play. It'll be a great storyline for the future. Like, imagine Texas loses 3 times, all of them to Oregon. I mean, all of them to Georgia. I mean. That's just.
I mean,
you can have like great series matchups. Like if 2 teams play each other 3 times, imagine like the documentaries that will be made in the future. On the series of 3 games, those 3 teams played each other.
You could see a Voice of College Football documentary on Texas, Georgia, if that were to happen.
Yeah, I think that'd be fantastic. If Georgia beats them twice and then Texas clips them in the title game, imagine the barking that would be going back and forth between those 2 fan bases for the next month. Like, oh yeah, we beat you twice. We beat you once. Well, yeah, we're still national champions. We beat you when it mattered. Like, that stuff's fucking fantastic.
I mean, we've had a couple SEC like rematch. Well, a few SEC rematches for national championships, like Alabama, Georgia, 2022, Alabama, LSU, 2012. And we can go as far back as the 1960 Sugar Bowl between LSU and Ole Miss.
Yeah, see, 2 to me is fine. Once you get to 3, that's kind of ridiculous, man. Like, I've seen this twice already. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen this twice, like a 3rd time.
Especially it's the same outcome. Like it's not like it was 1-1 or something like that, where you're like, okay, let's see who gets the best out of 3.
But like if Georgia plays Texas in the title game, if they both make it there, do you think Georgia's like an overwhelming favorite against Texas? I don't.
No, not overwhelming.
No. I don't think. I think they're barely a favorite at all. Maybe not even a favorite. You could easily take Texas in that game.
Well, yeah, because I mean, right now Notre Dame, Georgia's only like a 1.5 point favorite.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a really good game.
So, one of the other big things that came up this weekend was, so this is this is more of a personal opinion from all of you and the chat, of course. I saw a lot of people just having absolute arguments, and I think the people that argued this point don't understand college football and what the whole point of the playoff was. Is they say, why are we doing these home games and playing in the cold? Everything needs to be neutral site indoors. They don't understand the college game because I'm sorry, the home games were fantastic, even if they were blowouts. Absolutely fantastic.
The atmosphere at every single one of those games was outstanding.
I want more, but the bowl tie-ins, obviously, we are going to limit that availability. But I thought they were great.
Yeah, I would actually love the one thing that it does kind of suck. The top 4 seeds get robbed of that opportunity to host a playoff game. I mean, can you imagine these Arizona State fans, Arizona State students? I guess the one major downside is, classes aren't in session right now, so there aren't as many students, which was one of the reasons why ticket prices got so low this week. There just aren't as many students there to go to the games anymore. But the atmospheres at all of these stadiums were still, I think, in every single one of them, just outstanding. So, from that perspective, I thought that was a big success, and I would love to see another round where they were played at home stadiums, and I think the teams that are in the top 4 deserve that. So I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure how. One thing is, I'm not exactly sure how the ticket revenue breaks down. I mean, the teams that hosted this weekend, do they get to keep the revenue that they made from these gates? Because that's really unfair. If that's part of the scenario. Because Oregon potentially missed out on like $30 million of revenue from not getting to host a playoff game.
Well, yeah, and I was also going to say the Big Ten, especially the most northern teams, they're going to have a huge advantage in these first rounds, man. Huge advantage. I'm telling you right now, because especially these southern teams, they ain't going to like that freezing weather in December going forward. So.
Well, that's a lot of people said it was because of the weather. I'm like, hey, that's called college football. There are very few college teams that actually play indoors, and most of those are because they share it with an NFL team because they don't have their own stadium or whatever. And even Miami's outdoors, even though it's at the Dolphins. So I mean, it's like that's just college football.
Syracuse is the one exception, and that's because they live in a place that gets like 900 feet of snow every year.
Yeah, they have the dome and stuff, and the dome is crappy anyways. So sorry, Syracuse.
You never know. It could snow in October there. No, I agree. I would love the first 2 rounds to both be on campus. I think that'd be fantastic. But obviously, there are corporate tie-ins. These bowl games, they have to preserve the bowl system for some reason. But no, I thought the atmospheres were fantastic this weekend.
Yeah.
I really.
Yeah, because I know some friends of ours are like, get rid of the home game situation. Me personally, I don't think it's a problem. It's 1 year. I mean, it would be like pushing to get rid of the 14 playoff after year 2 because they were butt whippings. Because Clemson smacked Oklahoma off the face of the earth, and Alabama shut out Michigan State that year as well. So I think it's completely dumb to throw the baby out with the bathwater after 1 year. There's just things you don't do, and it's just
Jackson is spitting right now.
Huh?
I said you spitting right now. You speaking facts.
I did my best.
And that's the other fact that was brought up a lot was, and just thinking of, so I wanted to bring it up, is the real said it earlier, and I'd start it to bring it back up, is like, he's saying hopefully that, realizing the playoff was already a failure, and I think that's what the feel was from a lot of people this weekend was, seeing these blowouts, and some people were like, see, they didn't belong, they didn't deserve whatever. I'm sorry, blowouts have been happening in the playoff system no matter what, even in the BCS. They were happening.
Yep.
Alabama beat the hell. I mean, anyone would have beat the hell out of that Notre Dame team in 2012, I think. Anyways, but Oregon blew out Florida State. Oklahoma's got blown out multiple times.
Ohio State was a 10-point favorite against Florida.
Hey, Ben, I need to call out the real quick. If you just give me 2 seconds here. Look, the real. Listen up and listen up closely, buddy. We need to do a audit on your bank account because I think the SEC commissioner or whatever, I think they're paying you, buddy. I think they got to be paying you at this point because you sound like a shill. You sound like an SEC shill. Here's the bottom line. In a non-pro league, in an expanded playoff, these blowouts are inevitable. They're going to happen. Hell, they were happening with the previous model. How many semifinals were not even competitive? How many? You guys want to answer? How many semifinals?
I mean, most of them. The last couple of years, they were pretty competitive. But before then, I mean, you had just a lot of blowouts.
I mean, like Oregon ass blasted Florida State and the granddaddy of them all on New Year's Day of 2015, and we saw.
Yeah, be careful, Sean. That could happen to you as well.
Could happen to you.
LSU boat raced Oklahoma. I mean, they put up like 63 points on that Oklahoma team, and
Alabama
it's
smacked
happened.
Oklahoma off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Clemson smacked Notre Dame.
Notre Dame got spanked multiple times.
Yeah. The biggest question of this
got
is
blasted.
Well, yeah, and that was in the
Ohio
championship
State.
game.
Ohio State got shut out and blown out by Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, the point is these happen. I think the thing that we're looking at here is, guess what? This is the first round. Now there's still more football. That was just like, hey, one round done, championship. Now you actually get more. So now you're like, you weeded out kind of like, so to say, the teams that don't belong there, so to say, don't belong. Not saying they didn't deserve to be there.
Yeah, this is what kills me. And no offense to Jackson, but, one of the arguments the Real was making is, well, Alabama should be in there just because of talent over teams like Indiana or even over Tennessee. And I'm like, how? They lost to a 6-win. They got blown off the map in the last week versus a terrible Oklahoma team. They gave up 40 points in a loss to Vanderbilt. Why should they be in the playoff? Besides the fact they're SEC and you just think that there's some sort of talent thing that's just going to magically show up.
Well, you won't have to worry about offending me, man. Like I'm good to go. It's because like we shouldn't have let ourselves get ass blasted by Oklahoma, and we sure as hell shouldn't have let the Georgia game go to our heads against Vandy. We shouldn't have been like, oh well, Vandy's soft. We did that and it bit us in the rear. We did that to ourselves.
Well, I will say that's one of the good things about that is, like we started talking about Lane Kiffin. All the SEC people disappeared after last night's game with Tennessee. And they all pretty much disappeared off the face of the earth going
100%.
Never mind. Never mind. So,
And here's the thing, guys. The two most impressive wins of this playoff so far were the Big Ten. The worst loss was the SEC. And the least impressive win was the SEC.
Well,
yeah, debatable.
But I think the whole thing about first rounds at home fields being overrated this year is an overreaction. But if we see more of these whippings 3 years from now, 4 years from now, then okay, let's have the discussion. Let's not start it after year 1, year 2, year 3. When it gets to year 4, year 5, and we see the same result, then okay. And we have a new panel member. He is a new YouTube member, the voice of college football, the one and only Dennis K. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm not too new. I've jumped on a few things. I've been a member for a while.
Oh.
But I was really excited to hear you guys' conversation because I think it's really in line with some things that need to be said, right? One, I think the SEC is kind of down bad this year. I don't think there's an elite team. I think Michigan man was on the track before he got a little distracted with Ohio State. With the Tennessee comment and how, they're the third best team in the SEC, or at least the third, ranked number 3 in the SEC. And they're really not that good. And I would argue that with the Alabamas. I mean, even Georgia has had way more vulnerabilities than, let's say, Oregon or Ohio State. And I just wondered your guys' opinions on that.
I 100% agree. I think college football as a whole
we were talking about this holistic point about the SEC. I'm sorry, I did have a point to make on this topic of the playoff games, the first round being really, all these games being really lopsided. There are some simple fixes to this. For one, you have these 4 conference championships getting automatic bids. So Arizona State and Boise State got buys, while, a few other teams didn't. If you make Arizona State and Boise State play it in this first round here and you don't just automatically move them along, you would have more competitive games in the first round this weekend. You just would. I mean, you're in all likelihood, the third and the fourth best teams in the third and the fourth best teams in the country, so in this situation, by their ridiculous rankings, it would be Texas and Penn State. They would be getting the buys, and Arizona State and Boise State would be put into this mix somehow. Mm-hmm. And you're probably getting more competitive games by moving. Yeah. So the matchups are off because of implementing these auto buys here in the way.
But you're just pushing it a week later, though.
Yeah. I mean, but that's fine.
I mean, it doesn't really.
But that's fine. You watch the first round of the NCAA basketball tournament and stuff, and since there are 30 games, eventually, like, you're going to get a surprise somewhere in the first round. But like you don't care that the first, second, the 1, 2, and 3 seeds are mostly just demolishing teams that weekend. You're interested, like you'll tune in and watch the 7 versus 10, the 6 versus 11 games those weekends, right? Like, those are, and you don't have any expectation that those teams will be in the Final Four, but they provide some entertainment for that weekend.
Yeah. I just don't know but I don't think it always will play out that way, because at the end of the day, it comes down to seeding, right? So there could be a scenario where, Arizona State still plays one of the heavy hitters, and they don't play Boise State, and they still get blown out. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't really fix this. These blowouts are going to happen. They were happening.
They would be playing like this. They would be playing a team that they could probably be competitive with. They would probably be playing a team that they could be.
Maybe. I mean, it maybe could happen if the seeding's right, but the bottom line is these blowouts are going to happen. They were happening in the previous format when there was only 4 teams every year.
The thing is, they should be happening. It should be happening less the more you expand them, because the difference between the first and the no, they shouldn't. The difference between the first and the first and like the 4th team.
No,
generally should be greater than the difference between the 6th and the 11th.
I got
no. If you expand it, there's more opportunity for blowouts.
No, not in the first round. The difference between the first, sometimes you have a really, really, really elite team, and sometimes you have a 4th team that's very, very far. That's not even close to as good as the number 1 team.
Sean, generally,
the difference between number 6 and number 11, if you're doing it right, is not big.
Okay, what's the difference between What's the difference, for example, between 2 and 3?
It can be huge. The variance between the difference is going to be massive.
I'm just asking, for example.
Sometimes it'll be huge. Wait. You're asking me a question. I'm answering the question. Sometimes the difference between 2 and 3 will be massive, and sometimes it'll be very, very small. But the difference between 8 and 9 is always going to be like pretty tight. Always.
Okay, so in the previous format, we had 2 versus 3 and 1 versus 4. Okay? And they were constantly blowouts. And these were the 4 best teams in the country. These were best on best, and it was blowouts every year. You cannot fix this. And if you expand the playoff, almost every year, it was a blowout in the semifinals. Yeah. And you cannot. And if you expand it, you increase the opportunities of this happening, not decrease it, because there's
absolutely. You should be getting more competitive games in the first round the more you expand it.
I got a thought on this. I think that'll help kind of clear it, right? I don't think the expanded playoff was really designed for like the 12 seed to like make a run and go, right? What it was designed to do is catch the Florida States and Georgias of last year, right? Those elite teams that had a legitimate shot at a national championship that got left out because we only had 4 teams, and we essentially had 4 conference champions that could essentially get in. And so I think that's what it was designed to catch. Now what that's going to result in is what we've seen, right, which is an underdog team go on the road to a better team. Like Ohio State would have not made the 4-team playoff this year. And I think, and I'm not a Ohio State fan, but I think they have an argument that they're probably one of the top 3 teams in the country. Like they've looked vulnerable against Michigan and Nebraska, and that was it. Obviously, they lost to Oregon, but I wouldn't say that they looked vulnerable. But they would not have made it this year, and they have as good a chance as any to win it based on their talent. So yeah, they blew out an average SEC team. However you want to look at Tennessee, I don't think they were an elite. Tennessee was not an elite team. I think Ohio State is an elite team, and that's what it was designed to kind of catch, right? Is so when you have these micro upsets, right, that these teams still get in. Georgia last year was a good example. I think Georgia had as good an argument to be in the 14 playoff last year as anybody, but they didn't beat Alabama in the championship, right? So you're going to continue to have these blowouts. I mean, it's part of college football. To Michigan Man's point,
100% agree.
To Michigan Man's point, and I can't remember, who brought up the stat, but in like 20 of the playoff games that we've had, 5 were within 1 score, right? So a quarter within 1 score, and the rest were like, 2 scores plus. So it's just part of college football, right? But
yeah, exactly.
But that's all the point. The point we're trying to make here is the higher you go up, the more the difference between one team to the next becomes.
Yeah, but the first round is supposed to be higher seeds versus lower seeds, though. That's the point. Like a first round is supposed to be the least competitive. That's in every sport.
It absolutely is not.
Okay, let's go through every sport. NBA, what's the first round? It's the first seed versus the 8th seed. It's the 2nd seed versus the 7th seed. It's supposed to be the least competitive because you're taking the teams that have deserved higher seeding and you're matching them up against teams that have not deserved higher seeding. They earned the lowest seeding. So they're supposed to be not as competitive because the teams that earn their spot are playing teams that haven't earned their spot to nearly the degree. They're not supposed to be competitive.
Yeah, so like this year we had 5-seed Texas play 12-seed Clemson, which ended up being kind of the closest matchup. But you just reverse that. The other one that was kind of supposed to be close was number 9 Tennessee at number 8 Ohio State. I think is the number.
Yeah, that's smart. Mm-hmm.
But I mean the point. But again, to Michigan Man's point, right, is it is typically the higher seed hosting an at-home game against a lower seed, and so you are going to see some of these disparities, But for all we know, even though Ohio State and Oregon played already this year, and it was literally like a 1-point game, that could end up being a blowout one way or the other. I mean, I'm not predicting that, but it could be, right? Because it's college football, and these are kids. I mean, they're 20,
yeah, that's true too.
20-year-old kids.
In any sport, you just introduce like the variance of a 1-game sample. Like anything can happen at once, right?
Yeah, I think the miscalculation Sean's making is for some reason you're thinking that this first round should be 12 seed versus 10 seed, 9 seed versus 8.
No, not at all. I'm saying you're going to have bigger mismatches. But also, as you get closer towards the middle,
you have more blowouts.
But you should also have more competitive games. If
the mismatches are greater, then you should have more blowouts. Period.
But the mismatches in the first round, especially since you don't have the elite teams playing, there should be fewer of those.
You don't have. Hold on.
On average, the difference between the 5th team and the 12th team is going to be smaller than the difference between the 1st team and the 4th team.
Okay.
But that's why I brought up the earlier point of the previous playoff. Right? There were 20 playoff games, like he said. Only 5 of them were really competitive, and that was 1 through 4.
Yeah.
So, and when you start going to 5 versus 12. Then it's the blowout should actually increase. I mean, you can start getting 5 versus 12.
I'm just telling you.
Okay.
This is just basic math distributional theory.
All right, you two.
The further you get into the tails, the larger the gaps.
So hold on. You think
the data points become?
All right, I'm muting you guys manually because to shut the hell up. I walked away and you still are bickering about this? God. Anyways, there was a good comment earlier, and I want people to understand this because I know year one. It's been 1 week and people are bitching already. This is correct.
Well,
this is correct. Not the selection process, the ranking. Remember, the committee just ranks. The selection was agreed upon by all the commissioners.
The format is a failure completely. I mean, like you have two teams getting buys that absolutely don't deserve them. No questions about it. There's Boise State and Arizona State are not two of the 4 best teams in the country by any.
Yeah, but I'm saying the seeding
That's not the criteria, though.
Criteria. And then like also like I just have massive disagreements with how the playoff committee arrived at the rankings. I think they're kind of crazy. So yeah, you had it working both ways this year. Just a bad format and bad judgment by the committee. You led to not a great first round, and you could have had a much better one.
Well, again, the committee just ranks. They don't select. The committee is just ranking. The commissioners agreed upon how the selection process would go. So now you got to go bitch at the commissioners who made the choices they made of how the picks would be done. The committee doesn't say, hey, I want SMU to play Penn State. The committee's not saying that.
Do you find it interesting at all, though, that this year we didn't get any sort of any conference matchups in the first round? And I think the only potential conference matchup in the second round was Ohio State and Oregon. That was the only one that could have happened this year.
I do not like that part. That's something they're going to have to work on with the seeding process, because why does Texas and Georgia not have to knock each other out?
Oh, because because that was one of their criteria. They were trying to avoid rematches.
No, I know. Well, Oregon, Ohio State, here we go already. So, I mean, why is Texas?
Well, you can't avoid it at that point.
No, I know. But Texas is in the entirely other side. They wouldn't meet until the championship game. So they wouldn't even have an opportunity to knock each other out. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think you can only avoid so much. But I get what you're saying. You can only do so much, I guess.
It'll be interesting going forward, because eventually, like, you should have like more conference. If you're just doing it blindly and and the committee's not manipulating this to avoid certain matchups, you should have like conference foes meeting in the first round.
Well, you know what's crazy is they're going to expand it even more. They've already talked about that.
Yeah, that's in the works. It's probably going to happen. I think it'll be.
It's more money. At the end of the day,
I think it'll probably be at 14 2 years from now, to be honest.
Well, yeah.
You think it'll be 14, or they go straight to 16?
I've heard 14. I've just heard that was the next.
That's just crazy, bro. 14, dude.
16. At that point, you might as well just expand it to 16. But
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's going to be 5 rounds, or would it still be 4 rounds?
No, it would still be 4 rounds.
It'd still be 4 rounds? Okay.
Yeah. Just no buys at that point.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean, I got a question for you. You said in that initial thing that you think that the committee got it wrong and the format's bad. What do you think needed to be changed with the top 12? Like, just what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. The most significant thing is just assigning the buys to conference champions. It made a lot more sense before all this conference consolidation happened. But, now so much of the power is balanced in 2 leagues that you're essentially giving like 2 sort of lower level conferences auto bids here. So you're going to have, in most years, those will be Big 12 and ACC teams, but you're oftentimes going to have like the 20th best team in the country getting a bye. And in this year, you've got like 2 teams that maybe neither one of them are among the top 20 teams in the country getting buys in the first round.
Well, I mean, so the committee, right, votes on who they think the top 12 is, and then the playoff structure, right, was decided by the commissioners, a year ago, right? And so what their thought is, so you're saying that, like, let's say Boise State, the committee voted them at whatever their rank is. I think it's like 9 or something like that.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
around there.
they were seeded 4, but the committee still voted them in. You're saying they don't even belong in the top 12 compared to you,
No,
but the committee did vote them in.
okay, so here's
He's
my
saying
theory.
get rid of. He's saying just make
I'm okay with the I'm okay with the auto bids. I'm not okay with the auto buys. And I'm not okay. I think the top
agree
4
with
teams,
Doc.
the 4 teams that should be getting buys should just be the top 4 teams in the country. Period.
I agree with
I'm okay with the 5 auto bids to it because I think that makes the entire season a lot more interesting. Here it rewards teams for winning at their level and giving them a chance to punch up and play with the better teams in the country. But no. I mean, like we have just because we have matchups in the first round now that just aren't like Texas versus Clemson. Texas shouldn't be 5; they should be 3 or 4. And Clemson, they're honestly like the 20th best team in the country, maybe.
Well, I agree with you there, right? I agree that the auto buys should not be a thing, and that it should be like top 4 get the buy, and that I don't know that it solves the blowout program or problem. I said program, but I don't think that it solves the blowout problem. But I do agree that that's kind of how it should go. I understand why the commissioners made that decision, right? Not the committee. But I just, I think Clemson still ends up in, right? They probably still end up in at 12 because they did win their conference.
Mm-hmm. And I also had a problem, by the way. I think Clemson should have been seated ahead of SMU this year, but so for whatever that's worth. But no, I just think that the format of the auto buys lends itself that you're just going to have more of these lopsided first round matchups. Yeah, if you put Boise State and Arizona State in the first round this year, you're going to have more competitive first round games. And now we have a backloaded problem too. Is that now these quarterfinal games, 2 of them look like blowouts on paper to begin with, right?
I don't know about blowouts, but
I mean, we have decided favorites in 2 of these games. And you're going to have this year after year with the way this format is set up.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on paper. SMU or not? I'm sorry, not SMU, but Arizona State and Boise State don't match up as well as the competitors that they're playing. I got a little hope for ASU. I don't know how founded it is, but I do think that they're playing good football. Are they as talented on paper as the teams that they're going to be playing? No, but I think holistically as a team, they're playing some of the best football right now that anybody is. Now we'll see what that looks like on the field with talent, right? And talent does matter, right? And again, I started my presence here with kind of knocking the SEC, understanding that they have been a powerhouse for the last 20 years. I do think that dynamic has shifted over the last couple years, and I don't think that there's an elite. And I know I'm kind of bringing it back to that, but again, I don't think that the Arizona States and the Boise's are designed to win it.
No.
They just don't have the depth that the bigger conferences have. And we're starting to see this now with the ACC as well. And I think that is kind of Clemson's problem. I think Clemson has talent equal to Texas. I just don't think that they had the depth to stay as fresh for 60 minutes. And it's tough. I haven't played football in 30 years, but still, it's tough to stay that fresh for something that long.
Well, do you know what will instantly fix this griping that you guys have, well, not you specifically, Dennis, but the griping that a lot of people have been having already? The one thing that will fix it immediately is if Arizona State and Boise State both win these games and move on. That will immediately stop the argument. People still bitch and complain, but then the argument would be broken.
Yeah, but it really shouldn't in a lot of ways because anything can happen in one game.
That's called bitch. That's just called bitching. That's all that is.
No, anything can happen in a one game sample. But we expect on average these teams to get beaten up pretty soundly.
This is why I removed the link after the show starts normally.
Austin, what's up, man?
What's up? Well, I was listening to this conversation. I thought, I'm going to come put my 2 cents in. And no, Ben, it's not about Oregon. You could stop talking about them now, for Christ's sakes.
I talk least about my team of anyone on this panel almost, outside maybe even Jackson. I think he maybe talks similarly as little for the most part.
I'm just kind of playing sound odd.
I think I've spent more time talking about Merrimack than Oregon this year on this show.
That's bad.
Anyways, yeah, Austin, you said you had points to make. It's like it just went dead silent. I was like, am I still connected?
Yes. So my point is Sean, I understand your gripe with the auto buys and everything. I understand that. But for teams like Boise and Arizona State, for them, you win your conference. Not only is your prize the auto buy, but now you've got the auto bid and you get the auto buy with it. It's a 2-for-1, and it gives Arizona State hope where they don't have to win 4 straight to win the whole thing. Because let's say they upset Texas. Now they've only got 2 more games to win, and anything can happen.
Oh, yeah.
Merrimack.
I don't think there's much of a chance of any of these teams.
Well, Jason, how about Montana State?
No, never, Jason. You will not replace the OG Merrimack. Never.
And how about extra ban? How about just banning Jackson for that comment? We are not front runners like that. We're not just.
Talk about bandwagon.
We're not just.
Hold on, you are though. You're the Dallas Cowboys of college football. You're the Dallas Cowboys.
Montana State. That'd be lame. That'd be just jumping on and choosing Oregon as your favorite program now.
Oh, they are. This week they are currently my. I'm a fan of the Oregon Ducks. Go Oregon Ducks. You are my team for this upcoming week.
Did anyone see that? Did anyone see that one-handed catch in the North Dakota State?
Yeah,
South Dakota State to win it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. But I'm surprised. I'm surprised Brent Vegan at Montana State has been looked at as a coaching candidate. I mean, if anybody's not looking at him as a head coaching candidate, they should. Mercy Hurst. Oh God.
That's like these.
I thought I was thinking like Merrimack and Montana State would be like the FCS schools for the voice of college football.
I mean, we could just do a spin-off show where we just talk about the most random FCS teams if we want to do that,
Oh yeah. Yep.
By the way, I almost forgot. I do have to shout out the local national champions, the Ferris State Bulldogs, Division II national champions, just demolishing Valdosta State.
Oh.
Yeah. So a big win for the Bulldogs, about an hour north of me here.
Ooh.
Yeah, top dogs once again in Division II. West Michigan pretty much runs Division II. Grand Valley started their dynasty under Brian Kelly in Ferris State a few years ago. Said, "Nah, you're not the only game in town here." Yeah, so Division II football dominance pretty much runs through the Grand River here. So
you literally lost half the audience. They're like, "What are we talking about?"
No.
I mean, not that that's abnormal. That happens a lot on this show too. So
LIU.
Yeah, as soon as I start talking, half the people tune out.
What did I do?
I'll look at this at the off season. I'll look at this. Oh God.
Is he just going alphabetically here? Because every team starts with an M now.
Maybe. He's just looking at the worst teams too now. I think he's just literally like worst FCS record this season.
God. Oh my God.
God.
This is too funny.
They usually play a Power 4 team at some point during the year. Murray State does.
Yeah, Murray State. See, that's it. I've seen Murray. You see a lot of these other schools come up on schedules, like especially the first 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep.
That's why Merrimack just caught my attention when I saw him in the Air Force game.
Like, what?
I was like, where the hell is that school? You know, it's just like, what? I just never seen their name before. I don't think I couldn't recall anyway. So I was like,
yeah,
interesting. Oh, calm down over there, Austin. You calm down. You know,
I ain't said nothing. I'll say.
Whoa, feedback. Matt Ritson, 2 pro wrestler on the sideline. Watch kid Rich Steiner. I think I just butchered that. Is there any reference to this? Am I missing something?
Hell if I know.
Oh yes. So do you all know who Big Papa Pup Scott Steiner is? He was a professional wrestler.
Yeah,
his son plays for Jacksonville State.
I know Scott Rex Steiner from Bay City, Michigan. Yeah.
No, not that one. No. This was
no. Scott Steiner's. Yeah, his real name is Rex Steiner. Yeah, Matt's got it. Yeah. Yeah. Scott Steiner.
I didn't Jacksonville State.
I'm sorry. What was that? What about Scott Steiner?
His son plays tight end for Jacksonville State, and his son's going to follow in his father. His son's going to follow in his footsteps and do professional wrestling after his college career.
He's going to follow in his footsteps and develop cardiac disease at age 48 because he takes too many steroids. Is that what he's going to do?
God.
I don't know, Sean. You can ask Scott Steiner himself. I don't know.
I don't want to ask Scott Steiner anything. That guy scares me maybe more than any human being ever.
I was about to say, yes, Scott Steiner. That made sense.
That guy looks like he could just absolutely go bananas at any moment and just crush you between his bicep and his forearm.
Well, he is pretty scary, but Ben's pretty scary too. You ever seen Ben? No. Man, he'll put you in a headlock. Yeah, Ben, he's scary. I'm terrified of him.
Ben puts me in a headlock. He won't have any more hands after that.
Yeah, Sean's a biter. Oh shit! I won't say that live. Sorry, Sean.
Man, what?
What?
All right. Anyways,
what is going on?
Thanks, Matt.
That should be a new game. Everyone in the audience plays. Just tune away for 10 minutes and then just come in and see what we're talking about.
Just see random things
and try to figure out how we arrived at what we were talking about.
Okay, so Jay Snow gave us Merrimack, and he's giving us Murray State.
Oh God. We'll have to maybe we should make a poll on the off season to see
That's an excellent idea.
Which team wins.
How about Montana? We can also add Montana State to that list. Or Montana.
No, we are not. We're not front runners like this.
Who, Ohio State? They're the ultimate front runners. They're the Dallas Cowboys of college football.
No. The voice of college football. The After Dark program is not front runners themselves. We don't just. Yeah. Our new team is going to be North Dakota State. No. We don't do that shit.
We half-ass nothing around here.
Great chat. I just wish we could talk about my AC question.
Yeah, sorry.
What was DK's SEC question?
Well,
here he didn't say. He just said he couldn't unmute his mic, so he dropped out. And then
it was.
Oh shit. Yeah. Okay, Dennis. Shit. Oh.
Jason is doing research in the background over here. This is disgusting.
Oh God!
Yes.
I can't.
This is disgusting.
Well,
We may have that may be a winner. So that actually may be a winner.
Jackson, if nothing else, you can find candidates for these teams, and Mark could do weekly lives about them. We can have Merrimack live, Murray State live, Mount St. Mary's live. Ben can host the Merrimack one. Ben can host the Merrimack live.
We have 3 strong contenders already with Stonehill, Murray State, and again Merrimack. Yeah, I think we'll have to make an off-season poll for this.
You know my heart, where my heart is always going to be. Yeah. It's always going to be in North Andover, Massachusetts. Yeah. With the Merrimack Warriors.
Well,
always a Warrior at heart.
Merrimack kind of rubbed me the wrong way. They never got back in touch with me.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually kind of legit.
All right. Is there any other major topics we wanted to discuss quickly?
Yeah, I just man, moment of silence for Travis Hunter. He just deactivated his Instagram in the last hour. Pray for my boy, man. He's getting taken advantage of.
I need to catch up on this story. I don't know enough about this.
So I'll catch you up, man. So in the last couple hours, a video came out. Okay, so you know how his girlfriend was talking on tape how when they were first getting together, he used to drop her off at parties and he would just wait in the car for her for hours while she was inside at the party.
Yeah.
So a video came out recently, and I'm talking the last few hours, pretty much her at one of these parties, just, all up on dudes.
No.
I'm not shocked.
So yeah, pray for my boy, man. It's cold. Yeah, it's a cold world out there.
Oh my God.
That's funny.
Jason,
man.
Stop.
Jackson, we found you a new gig. Forget Alabama Live. Monday nights at 6:00 with Jackson Johnson. Right there, baby. That's money.
Gordon Ram Live.
Yo, that was an elite impersonation.
How about we
impersonation?
We should have a story covering just like sort of the Instagram drama of all these players. I think we could build a following talking about Travis Hunter's girl grinding on some guys at a house party.
Yeah, we're trying to see if DK Fishing and Outdoors is going to come back in here to get his question in.
Yeah.
Shit. Well, I would hope so.
Yeah, because I just sent him the link. I just sent him this link via Discord.
Personally myself, I've got nothing too much else. I mean, next week we're going to really look at the next round of playoffs. Is there any other bowl games though this week that are catching your attention? There are other bowl games. It's not just the playoffs.
Well, me, and Jackson's teams are going at it.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. And we got Dennis K wanting to get his question in.
Yeah, hey, gentlemen. So I appreciate you taking me in, right, again. Hey, but what I wanted to kind of ask the group, right, and get your general thoughts is, do we think that the SEC has an elite team in the way that they have in the past years? Now, I would say no. And my evidence or my thought process behind this is Georgia's shown many vulnerabilities. Starting with Kentucky, Ole Miss, obviously the loss there. Alabama, that game, Georgia came back, and then Georgia Tech, right? And then Georgia has beat the other team that would have that contention or that argument being Texas, right? And they beat them twice. Texas' offenses looked a little questionable. Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, I don't think they really have that figured out right. And then obviously the rest of the SEC kind of falls behind there. So, my thought when I look at the SEC, and I would say this about last year as well, they're looking kind of down bad. Am I crazy for that? Or do you guys see this stuff as well? Right? Because we hear look, I am not saying that the SEC was in the greatest conference for the last 20 years. I just think since modern college football and the transfer portal, that is shifting more rapidly than we thought. Do they have talented players? Sure. But Florida State has a top 10 roster right now, and I think they won 2 games this year. I'm starting to think that the SEC is kind of moving that direction as well. Let me know your thoughts.
Okay, so, I want to say as far as like the elite teams, I think what Saban did at Alabama sort of messed up the calibration for everybody's expectations on what an elite team and elite program should be. I mean, they were so consistent and so excellent that we expect a team to be kind of at that level pretty much every year. And like historically in college football, there are many, many years where a fairly flawed team emerges as a national champion. And, we're not used to that because Alabama was so good for so long. What?
Are you saying pre-college playoff era that vulnerable teams emerge, or are you saying recently? Because recently,
I'm like, absolutely pre-college football era. Well, I mean, definitely. I mean, really from whenever Saban sort of like established his dominance at Alabama. Before then, you had some vulnerable teams. Like you had a 2007 LSU team lose 2 games and win a championship. You had some teams you had a 2002 Ohio State team that squeaked by 1 million games and ended up winning it all. Like, I mean, it happened. It happened a lot more. I mean, like this year is not as abnormal as people think.
Yeah. It does feel abnormal because of their dominance, between Alabama and recently Georgia, right? So, Georgia kind of picked up where the slack that Alabama, but it just doesn't feel like the conference is strong. And I felt this way.
I would take it further. I think it's college football as a whole this year. I don't think it's just the SEC.
No, I mean, I'm with you there too. I think the parity in the sport is growing. Nobody has 3 deep 5 stars anymore. You're lucky if you have 2 deep. And that's showing itself on the field. But I felt this way last year too, with Florida State kind of getting the snub. And we can argue what we want, but when I looked at the, kind of not post-game matchups between the ACC and the SEC, they were pretty even, right? I think even before postseason in the bowl games, I think the ACC had the wins last year over the SEC. Now, were they the elite teams like the Alabamas? No. But conference as a whole. Now, postseason, right, was a different thing. I think the SEC ended up rolling over the ACC in that. But I don't know. It just, when I look at the SEC this year specifically, I see a Big 12, but maybe a grade higher, right? So if like Like, they're still A-quality programs, but they're all the same. They're all capable of beating each other at any moment. All good teams, but no team like Ohio State looks elite, right? Other than their hiccup against Michigan. And as a Michigan fan, it sickens me to say that about Ohio State. But, like, Ohio State looks elite. Oregon looks elite. They looked vulnerable the first 3-4 games of the season, but since then, no question, right? Penn State, not so much. Obviously, Indiana, not so much. Arizona State, like I said, I'm higher on them than those people just because I think they're playing really well as a team. Now, we'll see what happens when they get some real good competition.
Well, and you asked whether we'll see an elite team from the SEC this year. Well, I think we'll know more after the semifinals whether we'll see that elite SEC team.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, Texas. It's kind of hard to find like a real like glaring flaw in that team, but I still just don't believe in them like as a whole. I don't. There's something about them that just leaves me like lacking. That they're not. They don't have any weaknesses, but they're not like excellent at anything.
I think what Texas' weakness is similar to everybody's concern for Michigan last year, which is what happens when you come up against a defensive line that will not allow you to run and your quarterback has to win you the game. Quinn Ewers has that capability. There's no doubt about it. The question is will he be able to do it? Because he has shown at times he's inconsistent in that, and that's what makes them questionable, right? That's what we've seen from Quinn Ewers. And then they end up throwing kind of Arch in there to save the game. And let's use the two Georgia games as an example. Georgia's defensive line matches up well with Texas's offensive line, and they weren't able to just run them over like they were pretty much everybody else on the schedule. And then so what ended up happening is Quinn Ewers couldn't go out there and win them the game. Or at least he didn't. I don't want to say he could. He has that capability.
I would say, like, I think he's capable of it. I just don't know if you can rely on it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
It's like, I wouldn't be surprised if they get backed up into a spot and Quinn Ewers has a great fourth quarter and bails them out. But do I have a lot of confidence in that happening? Not really.
Yeah, because I think when Texas plays Arizona State, I think we're going to see more of the same that we saw against Clemson. But I think if Texas were to beat Arizona State, which looks likely in my opinion, we're going to see something a little different when they play the winner of Oregon, Ohio State. Like when we saw Oregon, because like you remember the narrative before Oregon played Ohio State was this is not a team that's going to beat Ohio State for 4 or 5 weeks straight. They were like, they look sloppy against Idaho. They look sloppy against Boise State. And I was right there that week when I subbed in for Ben when Oregon was playing Michigan State. I said right here in this office that the Ducks are saving their best stuff for the Buckeyes. Guess what? They did. I think we're seeing more of that from Texas. I think we're going to see a little bit of magic that they could bring in the semifinals, like if they could beat Arizona State. I don't think they're going to be quote unquote playing with their food as much when they play Oregon or Ohio State.
Well, a smart coach is going to do that, right? And when I look at like the Texas Clemson game, Texas got a big lead, and then what did they do? They just said, "All right, we're going to burn some time," which is the smart thing to do, right? You don't want to burn your players out. You don't want to burn your, you don't want to show everybody your playbook. Right. And so it's like, okay, hey, we're going to run it up. And if you can stop it, great. If you can't, oh, well. And then we'll let the defense do their defense. So I think you're right. I think we'll see some new stuff. But, I mean, we didn't see it again in the SEC championship, and we didn't see it against Georgia the first time. Right.
Right.
And again, I want to say Georgia is because I want to say Georgia's elite. Right. Like, I want to say that. But then I also watched them the first 2.5 quarters against Alabama and said, oh my gosh, this team is terrible, right? I also watched them in Kentucky, same thing, 2.5 quarters. I think if Georgia allows another playoff team if they play like 2.5 quarters bad against another playoff team, I don't think they're coming back in the way that they have in the past.
I think Georgia's problems are mostly just intangible, emotional. Like, I just don't think this is a mature football team at all. I mean, I saw the warning signs this offseason when all these players were getting into stupid trouble, for dumb reasons.
Yeah, true.
I was thinking like, you're going to get a team that is going to be just like wildly inconsistent. They're going to look amazing at times, and they're just going to like not show up, at others. And I'll say, I think like they got such a benefit from this bracket being on that bottom half, because they might not have to play their best football to beat Notre Dame and Penn State. That's possible. If they were in the top half, if they lost that game to Texas, and let's just assume they probably wouldn't be in the same spot as Texas, but let's just put them in that 5 spot. And they have to beat in Ohio State or Oregon in the semifinals, and then have to play a championship game. I don't know if they could do it.
Yeah. I agree with you too. I think Penn State and Notre Dame have very similar teams. I think they're elite defenses, great offensive lines. My question with both of them is offensive production, right? And so I agree. Like, will they be able to score 35 on Georgia? Because I think any team that can score 35 on Georgia probably beats Georgia. I just don't know. I don't think, other than Ohio State's offense with the talent that they have in the outside and running backs, and then Oregon as well. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's been forever since I've seen Oregon play like a really good game, So, I'm starting to doubt Oregon, but I don't want to sleep on them either because they played really well this year.
All right.
Well, I definitely think Oregon can put up 30 plus on anybody. I mean, I think Ohio State's the best defense in the country, and they put up 30, 32, and that was with missing a field goal and all that. So,
well, hey, I got to take off, guys. I appreciate you guys bringing me back on, and I'll figure out this technology better on the next time. All right.
All right, man. We'll be seeing. Glad to see you, Dennis K, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too. Stay warm.
It's an interesting topic to talk about. That's the hardest part to compare conferences. It's near impossible because everyone thinks their conference is the best or the toughest usually, and then you have those games, even the early non-con. Like Alabama beating Wisconsin at Wisconsin looked like a great win, blew them out. Well, Wisconsin lost Tyler Van Dyke, and Wisconsin's not a great team. So is it really impressive? It looked good earlier, now not so much. And so we just don't know. And everyone goes through flux. The one argument I hate the most is that, and this is not a shot at the SEC or the SEC fans. One thing I hate this year the most is that, we're the deepest conference. We're the best. That's why we're beating each other up. That's what the Pac was for multiple years, and everyone calls garbage. So I don't want to hear it from the SEC now changing their tone about being the deepest conference anymore. Like with that, I don't want to hear it. That's just a cop out.
And Ben, you said it a couple times on the Oregon channel and here about Oregon surviving in Madison, Wisconsin. You were like, Wisconsin may not have been, one of the better teams that you played on your schedule, but they gave you one of your best games, arguably, besides Ohio State.
Yeah, and every team is going to have an ugly game. Every team, no matter what conference you're in, you're going to have an ugly game like that. You are.
And some of them are built in by the schedule. Like you had that Wisconsin game. Who are you coming off playing the week before that Wisconsin game? Do you remember?
Jesus. Hold on, let me look. I got the schedule here. I'm trying to remember. I should remember.
Was it Purdue?
No, it was Maryland.
Okay. That was a road game too, right?
No, we had been at Michigan, then home Maryland, and then at Wisconsin before the bye. And that was the 8th straight game in that.
Stretch. Okay. So you played for the 8th straight week, and you're heading on the road. Hot. I mean, just crazy place to play.
Yeah, they were tired. They were tired, and you still credit Wisconsin. They threw everything.
Of course.
And they're
I mean, like they're. But I mean that's a game kind of built. You can look at that in the preseason and be like, that's going to be kind of a tough one.
And we said it. That was one of our four games we pinpointed and said that one's going to be questionable, to say the least, potentially. And it definitely was. So it definitely was. But that's why judging the conferences or up or down years or whatever, it's so hard to do. So I don't want to say the SEC's having a down year, or anything like that. I don't want to say that, but
and that's why when you try to like isolate specific results and pretend they happened in a vacuum, like a lot of people have done this season, this offseason, just they had a close game, they barely beat this team. I mean, there's a lot of context that's missing when
exactly like that Wisconsin game. People look at it and go, yeah, 16-13, what the hell? Then you have to go in the full context of 8th straight game on the road. It's on the road and number one, and Wisconsin throwing everything at you. I mean, so there's a lot to it that goes into it. So, anyways,
I got another example for you real fast, Ben. Alabama, they're a perfect example of what you're speaking of. They beat Georgia the week before, and then what happens? They go and lay an egg to Vandy, and Georgia won the SEC. And then you think, okay, you beat the team that won the SEC. Bama, by all stretch of the imagination, a lot of people's eyes, are a top 5 team after that, knowing what we know now. But then they lay an egg to a Vandy team, although they are going bowling. You're Alabama. You shouldn't be losing to Vanderbilt by no stretch of the imagination.
Well, and you also have to keep a team full of 18 to 22-year-olds flying into Nash Vegas that night. Who knows what they were up to the night before? I know they probably had curfews and stuff. Don't tell me they weren't getting around that somehow.
Well, and again, another good context to that in comparison is like, look at what happens. Like, just look at this year already. You have the new conferences, basically, the expanded conferences. Everyone going, hey, yeah, Oregon compete, but they're from the Pac. What do? Win the Big Ten, undefeated. Arizona State wins the Big 12 in their first year. Colorado had even an amazing year in the Big 12. I mean, and then Texas, right there for the title in their first year in the SEC. SMU, right there. I mean, so you're seeing this stuff now. Does that mean the conference is bad? Or is it more also what I think it was a good statement by Dan Lanning in the media days where he said, oh, we're not adjusting the conference. Conference is going to have to adjust to us. And I think he's true because there's a lack of familiarity between the teams. And that's why you get kind of an advantage. You're not like a Michigan, Ohio State that play each other every year where you're very familiar with each other, in that way.
Well, I'll tell you, I think the ACC deserves to have some embarrassment for having a team come in from the American Athletic Conference.
That is true.
Who was hardly dominant in recent memory in the AAC. Having a team come from the Group of 5 right into your league and basically run the table, basically bitch slap your league.
Yeah,
like that's got to hurt a little. And then they get you a second spot into the playoffs, and then they go and drop their pants in the first round.
Well, I mean Arizona State first year in the Big 12, they were 3-9 in the Pac last year. I mean, granted, Scatterbo is most of that team, but still. Levitt's no joke at quarterback.
I want to say,
and by the way, Sean, Media picked them last in the conference preseason.
I want to bring this up real quick, Sean, about your SMU point. As you're talking about them running the table, did you look at some of the teams that they played? They played a Louisville team that went 8-4. They played a Duke team that went 9-3, and they played them to 1 possessions. They lost to Clemson on a last-second field goal in the championship game. They were dominant throughout most of the season, yes.
Like 5 touchdowns to Penn State.
No, but you're talking about in the vacuum of their conference, though. Now, not to cut you off there, Sean, but you're talking about the vacuum of their conference. We're not talking about Penn State. We're just in their conference. It wasn't as they didn't blow everyone out of the water. They didn't run through everybody. They were still one-score games in the teams that could hang with them. Now, Pitt and those lower-tier teams, yeah, they ran through them. But like Ben said, you got to look at it in context.
No, but I'm like, that's even more the point. Like, once they got out of the ACC, and they had to play one of the upper tier teams. I mean, like they absolutely embarrassed themselves this weekend.
And again, in all fairness, so we're not just pointing out, say like that,
and they embarrassed the league.
Or we're not just pointing out SMU or even Clemson, I guess, if you want to add them in, or Tennessee. Again, then there's Indiana, just in all fairness, who, again, that's not like a Signetti issue. He didn't make that schedule. That schedule had been booked in advance and just lined out that way because of the expansion. They didn't have to play anyone outside of Michigan and Ohio State, but they ran through people for the most part. So they just did what they do, but then you see what happened when they went to Notre Dame. So in all fairness, the Big Ten also had that one team that just kind of stormed, just out of nowhere. So in all fairness,
but that was also a criticism of the Big Ten this year as well, is that it wasn't terribly deep, and once you dug through the top of the conference, it got a little thin after that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's fair. I wanted to point that out to be fair, so that we can say, okay, each conference kind of had their own kind of surprise team that isn't holding up.
But the difference is Indiana wasn't one of the top two teams in the league. I mean, they weren't. They were. They were kind of a second-tier team this year in the Big Ten. SMU was probably the best team in the league this year.
You can definitely argue that.
Yeah, I can get it.
Yeah, I mean, like they stubbed their toe in the first quarter against Clemson, and then basically came back and probably would have won that game if it would have gone into overtime. So.
Yes. And I mean, the only other really, really good team, with all due respect, I mean, Louisville was a solid team. The only other good one is Miami, and Miami couldn't stop a nosebleed. No. Defensively. I mean, they couldn't stop anyone. So they would have gotten probably drubbed in the playoffs.
If Miami had a decent defense, they would probably be 13-0 and probably would be the 2 seed in the playoffs right now.
Now they get to play in my favorite bowl.
Yes.
Yeah, Miami, Iowa State.
Which is fitting for Iowa State. Iowa State to be in that game is so fitting because they produce, like, probably that area produces 90% of the sugar that goes into Pop-Tarts from their high fructose corn syrup.
I just love that there's so much mystery. They have to do a vote of which Pop-Tart's going to get eaten. And then, of course, the reveal of the trophy was fantastic with the actual working toaster maker.
So I want to stick up for Miami for a second. Here's the thing about Miami. Like you all said, their defense, other than a few star players, their offense, I think, can hang with anybody in the country. I really believe that. Cam Ward, Estrepo, Damian Martinez in the backfield. I feel like Miami, if they played Penn State, would they have won? No, but it might have been a better looking game. I'm being dead serious. Or if they played Notre Dame, I really do, because their offense could carry them that far.
And this is where like the argument of like best versus most deserving gets in. I think most people would say Alabama and Miami are better teams than SMU and Indiana coming in. But I also I don't want to like forgive underperformance, underachievement through the season.
And that's the whole argument that I think that we have to circle back to is like, yes, you can argue that this team may be better, but then if you're not rewarding results, why are these teams even playing?
Right.
I think that's the whole thing. So like that is an argument too of like, should you get punished for losing your conference title game, say by 3? No, because you're playing an extra game while the other guy who's already going to get a seed is sitting at home. You're putting yourself now. If you get blown out in that conference game, that title game, then that may be different. If you get like absolutely just drubbed like 50-0, that would be different.
And that's what Ward Manuel even boxed himself in, because he even said that live and on air. If you have an extra data point, we will not punish you for that. So basically, they box themselves in, and the people want to complain about it. Well, thank Ward Manuel for saying that live on air.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely right. No. It was a ridiculous statement, because especially when we reveal, like, in the context, like Penn State made that Big Ten championship game because they didn't have a stuff on the schedule, and we've talked all year about the differences between schedules among teams in the same conference. Like, when we expand the leagues like we have, like, there's just going to be big disparities in schedules. So for him to say that, it ignores a lot of context.
It can.
There should be more nuance to the decisions than just saying, okay, we are just not going to downgrade you. This is a total free roll in the conference championship game. You can't possibly, lose credit in the committee's eyes.
That's fair. I mean, that is fair. There's a context to it. But I also agree that, again, at the same time, if you have, say, Indiana played Oregon instead in the title game, just because that was a potential hypothetical possibility, and it had been the same score as Penn State was, everyone would be looking at Indiana differently, going, oh, okay, they didn't get the opportunity to do it. Penn State, everyone's like, yeah, but they can't. Their offense, look what they just did in that game. Now it seems like they're back to reality, at least this last weekend. But, the point is, so yeah, the same thing. There has to be that context of, like, you don't know what the potential possibility could be if they don't get to play that game potentially. So it's tough. There's no perfect system, I don't think. The only way it'd be perfect is if you went back to literally like a 9 or 10 team conference where you have to play everyone. That's the only reasonable way to do it, in a way.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off that, Ben, is Penn State and Oregon, I think, played one of the best conference title games all weekend long, maybe one of the best in Big Ten history. And, Sean had made the argument about why is Penn State still ahead of us? Well, Ward Manuel, even when he said we're not going to punish anybody for that third data point, that answered his question right there. Penn State played in the conference title game. You didn't, Ohio State. I don't care if you beat them. You didn't get to play in this game, so we are not going to punish Penn State.
Yeah, I'd have to disagree with the divisions comment also. Yeah, keep chopping divisions. Divisions screwed a lot of teams over that should have been, would have been in a playoff situation like this, would have been in. So divisions actually really screwed a lot of teams over.
And the divisional system gave us so many just garbage conference championship games.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the Big Ten. I mean, but also the ACC. I don't know, like the craziest thing I've ever heard, and this never gets enough shine for how bizarre this is, but the ACC Coastal has 7 teams in it, and there was a 7-year cycle where every single team won the Coastal.
Yeah.
That's absurd. I mean, that shows you you're not serious.
Well, it's
right?
the same for the last 10, 12, 13, 14 years, whatever you want to argue. You always knew it was you're always going to fish Michigan or Ohio State, pretty much.
Penn State got to 1 year.
1 year. The pack, it was always the North Division. You were going to play.
And Michigan State had a good program there for a little while too.
No, I know, but it's the same as the Pac-12 North. You were always going to play Oregon or Stanford, pretty much.
Yeah,
and then Washington the 1 year until the DeBoer days and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah.
So and then Utah came on late.
Yeah, in the South.
That South. Yeah, that's what South.
So yeah, so they were just the lopsided. But you would have in that situation where 2012, I can specifically think of as Oregon. The only loss they had was a 3-point overtime loss to Stanford. Stanford won the Rose Bowl that year. Oregon played in the title game, so they got left out of a potential playoff for the national title. And that was probably one of the better Oregon teams of all time because they played in the North Division, so they got left out of the conference title game, so they didn't get a chance, So divisions really screwed it up, whereas you would have had a rematch of Stanford, Oregon. That's how it should have been. Not Stanford playing, I think, UCLA in back-to-back weeks, regular season, and then a conference title game. It was bizarre. So, all right. Any other final comments, guys?
Like
I'm just ready for the bowl game to really get chopping. I'm ready for that Armed Forces Bowl. That's gonna be a good one. Oklahoma Navy.
I'm ready for I'm ready for Colorado BYU. We're finally going to see who the better team is.
Yeah, since they didn't play. Yep.
That's that is an interesting one. That's when was the last time two teams in the same conference played a bowl game against each other?
Rare.
Has that ever happened?
Yes, it has. It's happened plenty of times in all of college football.
But not in my life. Not in my memory ever.
Well, even I know Florida Tennessee played each other in a bowl game in 1969.
Yeah, but it's still relatively rare. It's not like an annual thing or every couple years. It's pretty weird.
What's the reasoning for them playing in this bowl game?
Well, because it's because Colorado is old Pac-12. That's a contract deal that's running through 2026,
right.
Which is why you see Washington in the Holiday Bowl versus Syracuse as well.
Poor Washington State.
Jesus.
God, I'm just looking at this. The December 26 bowl games, the Game Above Sports Bowl, the Rate Bowl, and the 68 Ventures Bowl. I mean, just classics, right?
I'm looking forward to the Birmingham Bowl.
Who the hell were the interns that came up with those names? It's like the executives were like playing with themselves while they had their interns just coming up with the names. Like, okay, Rate Bowl, 68 Ventures Bowl, Game Above Sports Bowl. Like, you could have just said the GameStop Bowl. You could have called that GameStop Bowl or Rate Bowl.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they sold the naming rights on eBay.
Is the company so bad that you have to call your?
Is eBay still a thing? I don't know. I don't want to date myself here, but.
Well, I was going to ask about like the Rate Bowl. Like, is the economy so bad to where you can't call yourself the Guaranteed Rate Bowl? Like, what's next year's name going to be?
Oh, no. I mean, you can't guarantee anything right now. Interest rates being what they are, I mean,
you're right. Let's call it the half rate bowl, the quarter rate bowl,
I mean, like
1/10 rate bowl, the 100th.
They're waiting till the Fed's next quarterly meeting. They might change their name.
So,
are you surprised by this? Because this could be one of the better bowl games of the week or the season, even. So, Georgia Tech versus Vanderbilt.
Oh yeah, the Birmingham Bowl. That's going to be a good one.
That
Haynes
King versus Pavia. I don't know. I kind of like it.
I'd be more interested if this was an engineering meeting showdown.
Right?
Like, come on. Which one? Which of you can build the better bridge here?
The Nerd Bowl.
Yes.
What? Let's see. Oh, yeah, the Liberty Bowl. That's going to be the Southwest Conference Bowl between Texas Tech and Arkansas. Birmingham Bowl.
That's going to be fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Birmingham Bowl is the old SEC Faux Bowl.
Oh, I got a good one. Texas A&M USC in the Las Vegas Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Who's ready for that showdown?
I don't know if that's going to be good for USC. USC's lost so many players in the transfer portal. That might be brutal.
At least it's not Washington State. You lose your starting quarterback, you lose your players, you lose
And
your
your
OC,
coach.
your head coach, and it's not even to anywhere big or anything. It's to Wake Forest. Wake freaking Forest. You lose your head coach to Wake Forest.
Oh
That's
man,
bad. That is
bad.
bad.
I had been feeling bad for the Beavers. No offense, Clinton. I know you're in the chat, but I'm feeling really bad for Washington State. I was like, within a week period, that program literally just completely collapsed.
I mean, makes total sense though. You go from a team that's just not in a power conference to a team that is. Well, and a team that has like major, a program that is getting revenue from television contracts and in revenue sharing. Why wouldn't you do
Dickert,
that?
it made sense to be stable for himself. Obviously, I get that.
Yeah, of course.
But you lose.
What can you do? But
everything else along the way, though, as a program.
I'll say this about Washington State and Oregon State: they could have done a lot more, like in the past, 10, 20, 30 years to upgrade the profile of their university, and they kind of didn't. They kind of just coasted on this association with all these other universities that had higher profiles, better reputations.
Well, yeah, but every conference has some of those teams.
Man.
And I'm not saying anything bad. I don't hate on the Beavers. I don't hate on the Cougars. I miss them. But it's every conference has those kind of teams where they'll battle, they'll try, but they just never can quite reach. Or maybe once every decade or 15 years they'll.
I'm talking about them more as brands and as institutions. I mean, that's just they didn't raise their academic profile, they didn't raise their marketing profile. The entire time they were there, they just kind of hung around.
Yeah.
The whole time they were in the Pac-12. The whole time they were in the Pac-12, it's just you know what? As long as we're associated with this group, we'll be fine.
I mean, now you're not. At least Oregon State lost their coach to a Big Ten school, and but Washington State lose your head coach to Wake Forest. That shows you're in a bad state.
So did Dave Clawson just retire, or what?
No,
he didn't like the state of where college football was going. So,
really?
And I thought I was gonna take a nap a little bit before I was getting ready for Crimson Tide Live, but then it's suddenly I see a breaking news event that Dave Clawson's gonna retire. Could have waited at least after Crimson Tide Live. Okay, well. We'll post it.
Yeah, it had been planned out, and that's why it took a stressful 3 days to name Dickert the coach, because it had already been planned out. They had already made the deals and arrangements. And Clawson's staying on as a advisor or whatever with the university or whatever. With the team and stuff.
Maybe Dave Clawson could join us at the Voice of College Football. That'd be cool. What do you think?
So, I got one more bowl I want to bring up. Okay. Duke Ole Miss in the Gator Bowl. Come on, Manny Diaz, shut Lane Kiffin up.
I think that's next week. We'll bring that up next week, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Jackson.
Yes.
Ben asked me if I was excited for any bowls.
How about the first bowl game in a decade for the Nebraska Cornhuskers?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We can't leave them out.
Against again playing Boston College and Ohio State legend Bill O'Brien. From his 2.5 weeks as the OC in January.
I love seeing football games at Yankee Stadium. I'll tell you right now, in a few days, we're going to be celebrating an anniversary of the greatest game ever played, the 1958 NFL title game. And guess where it was played, ladies and gentlemen? Yankee freaking Stadium. The first ever overtime game in NFL history between the Baltimore Colts and the New York Giants.
Of course, Jackson would know that.
Everybody knows that.
We also have the Fenway Bowl between
UConn
North Carolina and UConn.
And
that is,
of course, they picked today to say,
Belichick's not coaching in that game, is he?
"Oh no." And why North Carolina didn't let Matt Brown coach that game? I'm still mad about that. Like let the Fenway Bowl be his final game. Let him coach at Fenway Park.
Originally he was supposed to, and then all of a sudden that changed. It was like, okay.
Like the University of North Carolina is a bunch of dickheads.
I would say that would actually, like, if Belichick was actually coaching in this game at Fenway Park, like, that actually might draw enough people to sell that place out for the stadium again. I mean, there might be enough. There might generate enough interest.
All right. Well, then let's leave it at that on the Belichick note.
Right.
Why not? That seems like a good, awkward place to leave it.
Yep.
Yes, the menacing man known as Bill Belichick. Going to come in your house, sit down and have dinner with your kids, and he's going to force you to play at North Carolina. There we go.
All right. Well, then, once as usual, please, everyone, go around, especially Austin wasn't here earlier. Tell people where they can stalk you online if they choose to.
Oh, there we go. Well, of course, they can stalk me online at Jackson Johnson 979 on YouTube, where I'm 108 subs away from the magic number 500. They can stalk me online on Alabama at the Voice College Football, 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time for Crimson Tide Live, and on the Crimson Tide Call-In Show, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central Time on Thursday evening, including the 18th edition of Crimson Tide Live tomorrow, where Johnny and I will be joined by John and TJ to discuss the preview of the ReliaQuest Bowl. And after that, we will be joining John and TJ on Michigan Live at the Voice College Football. It was moved up to Monday for, well, obvious reasons. Hint, hint, Christmas Eve. And of course, you can also find my latest episode of the Jacksonian with Alan Cole, the beat writer of South Carolina, at Gamecock Scoop at Rivals, which will be released 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the link down below, where we talk a little bit about the South Carolina Gamecocks and what we want for Christmas and much, much more, including the Citrus Bowl preview against Illinois. But in conclusion, let's beat Texas at the Voice College Football to 3,000 subs. Let's get Alabama above Texas, and let's show everyone who's the top SEC team in the Voice College Football. And Sean, what magic are you cooking up on X and Blue Sky this week?
Just what other random garbage thoughts come into my head can probably be found on Twitter and Blue Sky. I don't have much of an editing process between my brain and my fingers, so if you want a lot of dumb garbagey content, follow me on both of those spots. And other than that, yep, I will be heading over to Wisconsin, visiting my friends and family. So maybe some cute photos of my nephews and my brother's dogs this week, and just resting up, preparing for the treacherous showdown in Pasadena on New Year's Day. And also enjoying all the wonderful college football along the way. So, yeah.
There we go.
That's it.
Austin, you're next.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thanks for watching us.
Okay, so you can find me in Sports Talk with Austin 2002 on my YouTube channel, where me and Jackson, we do picks and analysis, final whistle together, and we're doing the playoffs. We're doing the transfer portal. We're covering it all for you. And then, of course, I'm on Twitter too, where I talk college football. I talk to Dallas Cowboys. I talk to Denver Nuggets. I talk about a little bit of everything, pro wrestling. I talk it all over there. So if you want to hear my takes on that, come on over. I won't bite. I love the interaction. Ben, where can people stalk you, young man? Because everyone loves you. You're the fan favorite here.
That is not true. You can stalk me on, Explore with Ben and Sam on YouTube, the Oregon channel, where we'll be doing a couple preview shows this week and next week before the Rose Bowl, or on X if you want, or I just post a bunch of random shit. And that's about it.
And he posts a bunch of random shit on Instagram and on TikTok. So
not really. No, not really. Actually, don't use those anymore.
You might want to give him a follow.
Ben's a TikToker.
No, I'm not. Special shout out though, Pacific Northwest Ute, Nick and Matt Ritson for your super chats. Want to definitely highlight you guys for your contribution to the channel. Helps a lot, and we appreciate it. Mark does too. And other than that, Jackson, in special celebration of this week's best bowl game.
Oh God!
Do you want the honors?
But before we say this, is this the final edition of this outro over here? Is this?
This might be it. Well, hopefully we can update it next week.
Oh my Lord!
Hopefully we can update it.
This is a momentous occasion, and only the golden voice of Jackson Johnson can send this out with the respect it deserves.
Yes.
Yes, that ref getting that creamy spanking.
There you go.
So, thank you everyone in the chat. Again, super chats, appreciate it. Everyone in the chat for being contributors. You guys are also what help make the show go around, make it entertaining for us also up here. So thank you very much, and we will see you guys next Sunday night to continue to preview bowl games and the playoff. Jackson, what you got?
Pop-Tart, play us out.
Oh, yes.
Sean, put that thing away.
Your buns are so hot.
Too bad it couldn't be the same ref crew this year. That'd be funny.
Sean, put that away.
We need to legacy this in. The NCAA needs to legislate. Make sure this is the same.
Oh my gosh, Jackson. Jackson, don't show me that. For Christ's sake.